Hello, everybody. Hello. Good afternoon. Good to see you. I've got my comments turned off again today, just during the presentation part. And then when we're done, I will go ahead and turn comments on. We'll do a Q&A after. So we will follow up with a Q&A, but I did want to get the material out to everybody first. So welcome in, everybody. Good to see you. Happy Friday. Glad you are here. So today, everybody, I've got a special presentation to start with. Again, I will be turning on comments after I've finished going through this. But this is the testimony. So these are the transcripts from the New York civil case. And this is specifically Mr. Trump's testimony. Now, if you're interested and you're not sure what is what I'm reading, it will have at the very top of each page that it's Mr. Trump being questioned by the plaintiff. So this is the direct by Mr. Wallace. So this is at the top of every page, so I won't be using a sticky note today, but I will be taking you through his full testimony. Now, I'll only be going through the morning session today. I think that is plenty for today. So let's go ahead and get started. Again, I will turn comments on for a Q&A after I've finished going through the transcripts here. So please bear with me as we go through. So welcome in, everybody. Welcome. So here we go. We'll get started. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. We will start here. This is the case out of New York, the civil case. Here's the case number for anyone interested. This is available online. If you go to the New York Civil Division, you'll be able to pull this case up. You can pull these transcripts up as well. It's all public information, public and available to everyone who's interested. So this particular bench trial had started November 6th before Judge Engeron. So these are the proceedings set out there. Again, this transcript is coming in from the 15th, and it is of Mr. Trump. There are some sparks that fly a little bit, everybody. There's a lot of back and forth going on between the court and the defendant and the witness. So I'll try to see if I'll do the best that I can here with the different circumstances. So let's go ahead and dive in. Here we go. So the court, well, we have a lot of people here and apparently a lot of photographers outside that want to photograph some of you. We always call them the gaggle of photographers. I think gaggle refers to geese, don't you? And then the photographers enter the courtroom. Photographers exit the courtroom. That's just hilarious. The court. Now, as I go through this transcript, everyone, I will just be pointing to whomever is speaking rather than introducing them each time. Now, the court will be highlighted in pink. Mr. Trump's attorneys are in yellow, and then the attorney for the AG's office is in green, and Mr. Trump's testimony is in orange. So let's keep going here. I would like to start right away with the next witness. Are there any housekeeping matters that can't wait until later? Not that can't wait, Judge. We have a minor housekeeping matter, but if Your Honor would like to proceed, we will just wait until later. Great, thanks. Plaintiff, would you like to call your next witness? Certainly, Your Honor. The people called Donald J. Trump. Whereupon the witness took the stand. Please raise your right hand. Donald J. Trump, after having first been duly sworn, was examined and testified as follows. Please state your name. Either home or business address for the record. Yes, it's Donald J. Trump, and I live in Palm Beach, Florida, 1200 Southern Boulevard. That sounds great. I'll just ask you, like I ask every witness, talk right into the microphone, loudly, slowly, clearly. Mr. Wallace, please proceed. Thank you, Your Honor. Then we start our direct examination. Good morning, Mr. Trump. Good morning. You were the beneficial owner of a bunch of companies branded as the Trump Organization. Is that correct? Yes. From May 1st of 1981 until January 19th of 2017, you were the director, president, and chairman of the Trump Organization Incorporated. Is that correct? Yes. And the assets of the Trump Organization are currently held in a revocable trust. Is that correct? Yes. And that trust is called the Donald J. Trump Revocable Trust. Is that right? Yes, that's right. If we talk about the trust today, you will understand that's what I'm referring to. Yes, certainly. You are the donor of all of the assets in the trust? Yes. Are you the sole beneficiary of the trust? Yes. You formed the trust when you decided to run for president? Is that correct? Pretty much when I won, I formed the trust. Do you recall that the trust may have been formed actually in 2014? It could have been earlier, but it was primarily when I thought about running. I think maybe came into it could be a little earlier, but pretty much around the time that I won. And the purpose was related to your run for the presidency, is that correct? I thought there would be a conflict of interest if I had the properties outright, so I formed a trust. But no, excuse me, even though I would be allowed to do that. In fact, I told you the story once about George Washington. He had 2 desks, one for business and one for president. You are allowed to do that, but I didn't like it. And I felt there may be a conflict of interest, so I formed the trust. But prior to you becoming President of the United States, you were the sole trustee of the trust. Is that correct? That's correct, yes. And after you were elected President of the United States, you appointed your son, Donald Trump Jr., and Alan Wesselberg as trustees. Is that correct? That's correct, yes. So, why did you select Mr. Wesselberg to be a trustee? Well, he had been with the company a long time, and he was somebody that I had confidence in. He did a good job. I mean, he was very good at what he did. He was the controller and financial person, and we really liked him for a long time. And you trusted Mr. Wesselberg? I did, yes. At the time you appointed him as trustee, he was the chief financial officer of the Trump Organization. Is that correct? Yes, that's right. Why did you select your son, Don, to serve as a trustee? He is a hardworking boy, young man, and he has done a very good job, as has Eric. Eric was very busy running the company, and I thought that putting Don in would be good. He is smart. He's a very honorable guy. And when you left the White House, you appointed yourself as trustee again. Is that correct? That's correct. And at the time after you left the presidency, you were the sole trustee of the trust. Is that correct? Yes, around that time, yes. Well, why did you make yourself the sole trustee? Well, I figured that I would be back in the business world for a little while, depending on what happened in politics, and I was going to get involved with the business again. I wasn't in politics other than thinking about running or doing whatever I had to do. So I figured that I would be back in business. I might as well be the trustee. I'm going to hand up to the court officer a document that's been marked as Plaintiff's Exhibit 1720, handing. If you could put a copy of that on the screen, please. If we could skip to page 2 of this document, this is a document entitled the Donald J. Trump Revocable Trust, Removal of Trustee. And if we look down at the bottom of the page, it says, now, therefore, pursuant to Subarticle A and Article 13 of the Agreement of Trust, Settler, hereby remove Donald J. Trump as trustee under the Agreement of Trust, effective as of 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, July 7th, 2021. If we look on the next page, you will see, is that your signature? Yes. Why did you remove yourself as trustee as of July 7th of 2021? I don't know that. I think we were at a position where I was gaining more and more confidence in my family in terms of business, and you would have to see what the alternative is. Who are the trustees that were appointed? Because I had many different. Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to show you a page 5 of this document, which is entitled Appointment and Acceptance of Trustee. It states at the bottom, now, therefore, pursuant to subarticle A of Article 13 of the Agreement of Trust, 1. Settler hereby appoints Donald J. Trump Jr. as trustee under the Agreement of Trust. And 2. Donald J. Trump Jr. hereby accepts such appointment effective as of 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, July 7th of 2021. Yeah. So that's your son, Don Jr.? That's right. He was impressive in business, as was Eric. And I thought I would do that while I continue onward with politics. Okay. Anything in particular was happening in July of 2021 that led to that decision? Well, other than you and about every other Democrat district attorney, AG, and U.S. attorneys, etc., were coming after me from 15 different sides, all Democrats, all coming after me, all Trump haters, and all cases that are not good, that are inappropriate and not good. Weaponization, they call it. But I felt Donald would do a good job. He would be running the business with Eric, and I had great confidence in him. So, I'm just trying to understand, was the decision to appoint Don actually related to the investigations you referred to? I think more so to the fact that I was staying very much in politics. You know, obviously, as you see, I have been in politics pretty much more than I thought, perhaps. Okay, Mr. Trump, I'm going to put a document up on the screen. I don't think we need to have a hard copy of it. This is a document that is already in evidence as Plaintiff's Exhibit 787. This is a copy of your 2011 Statement of Financial Condition. Is that correct? Yes. Is it correct that you had a statement of financial condition prepared as of June 30th for every year from 2011 until you became president in 2017? I think so, yes. Your Honor, housekeeping, I failed to move into evidence document 1720, which was the trust document we just looked at. Granted, it is in evidence. Thank you, Your Honor. If we go back to the Statement of Financial Condition, is it correct that you reviewed the Statement of Financial Condition in each of those years from 2011 to 2017 before it became final? Yeah, I would look at them. It was not something that was of great urgency because I knew they weren't very badly needed in a true sense. But I would look at them, I would see them, I would maybe on occasion have some suggestions. When you say they weren't badly needed, what do you mean? Banks didn't find them relevant, and they had a clause in it, a disclaimer clause. You could call it a worthless statement clause because they were done in such a way that they really were, you talked about it here recently, a compilation. They were just something that you would have for yourself. But if you were borrowing money, and as I guess people are starting to say, I was very levered anyway to start with, but they were not really documents that the bank paid much attention to. They looked at the deal. They looked at the asset. If the real estate, they looked at the location, but these were not very important, primarily for the reasons that you had a disclaimer clause that was very, very powerful. How did you know that the banks did not pay attention to your statements? Because I've been dealing with banks for 50 years, and I probably know banks as well as anybody, and I have borrowed a lot of money. I have paid back a lot of money, and I know what they look at. They look at the deal. They look at the location. They don't want to get involved in financial statements because that's not what they are after. If a deal goes bad, they want to be able to take the deal back over and, have it. They want you to be able to put up some cash or whatever it is that you may be, including expertise. But they don't want to be fighting for 10 years over a personal financial statement. They want to take over the deal. So you understand that these statements would go to banks, but it's your view based on your experience that they didn't rely on them very much. They may go to the banks. Some banks wanted them. They didn't. They just weren't a very important element in a bank's decision-making process. And we will explain that as this trial goes along. This crazy trial goes along because we are bringing in some bankers, and the bankers will tell you, very big bankers, bankers that dealt with me, and they will explain exactly what their processes were. But these were very substantial bankers, and they will explain what the process is. But they paid little attention to documents unless they were certificated documents. Unless they were at the highest level where everything was checked, everything was. But even then, they were more interested in the deal. Mr. Trump, Mr. Wallace is being very patient, but I would like to move things along a little faster. Please just answer the questions, no speeches. Mr. Wallace is going to ask questions. You are going to answer them, and I'm going to make sure that happens. And some of your answers have not been responsive to the question. They responded, but then there was a speech to be had after that. Mr. Keyes, as Mr. Trump's attorney. Your Honor, respectfully, I've been watching that. All of Mr. Wallace's questions have called for narratives. Not badly needed. What do you mean? That's an open-ended question. How did you know the banks didn't rely? That's an open-ended question. So you understood. I mean, if Mr. Wallace is going to ask open-ended questions that call for narratives that I haven't objected to ordinarily, I like to object to Mr. Wallace's questions, but they are narratives. So if they call for narratives, I think that it's fair for the witness to narrate. He will certainly understand your instruction, but they are open-ended questions he's asking. He's not asking narrow questions like, what do you mean by, this? What is your understanding of that? Those are questions that call for narrative respectfully. Well, we agree on the principles. We disagree on the application. So let's just continue. Thank you, Your Honor. Why don't we go through one of the later statements in a little more detail? If we could get Plaintiff's Exhibit 730, please. This is in evidence, Your Honor, so we are providing an extra copy for the witness. Handing. Mr. Trump, I've handed you a copy of a document that's in evidence as Plaintiff's Exhibit 730. Do you recognize this as a copy of your 2014 Statement of Financial Condition? Yes, I do. If we can turn over to page 2 of the document, we will also put it up on the screen. The second paragraph states, Donald J. Trump is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statement in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America, and for designing, implementing, and maintaining internal control relevant to the preparation and fair presentation of financial statement. Is that statement true and accurate? True in the sense that what they wanted was, this is Mazars, what they wanted was as much information as we could give them so they could do their statements. And if you look at every other paragraph, that's what they talk about. So, is it true that you are responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of financial statements? Getting them information, yes, in a form of getting them information. Okay. And if they had a problem with it, they wouldn't have done the statement. In other words, if they didn't get what they wanted as per that paragraph, they would call, can you get this? Can you get that? And they wouldn't do the statement. So who is responsible? Well, strike that. Can you tell me, what did you do to meet your responsibility for the preparation and fair presentation of this financial statement in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States? Me personally, or let's start with you personally. Okay, well, first of all, it was so long ago, this is well beyond the statute of limitations. I would think anybody else would be well beyond the statute of limitations, but I'm probably not, because I'm sure the judge will rule against me, because he always rules against me. But this is something well beyond the statute of limitations, but I will tell you that my primary thing was to tell people to give them anything they needed. Mr. Keyes, was that comment necessary and part of the narrative to answer the question? Well, Your Honor, he is asking broad questions about him personally. I think what he's trying to understand is the witness's perspective. I mean, this is an unusual situation in an unusual trial. I think the court should grant the former president of the United States, and according to the New York Times this morning, perhaps soon to be the future President of the United States, a little latitude to explain. It is a bench trial. There is no jury. If it is his view, it's his view. Your Honor is in charge of the courtroom. You have our view. You can instruct him as you see fit. But again, Mr. Wallace is trying to get at what this is. What is this witness's understanding and what he did? The only way he can present that is to explain his position. I think it's fair for the court to hear his position, whatever it may be, whether it agrees or not. I certainly think that it's fair for the American people to hear his position, but we are subject to your Honor's instruction. I think it was a yes or no question. Was he responsible? Is the question to me or the comment that I always rule against him, which, as you know, is not true anyway? It certainly didn't answer the question. So Mr. Trump just answered the question. You can attack me, you can do whatever you want, but answer the question. Could we get a read back, please, Your Honor? Read back, please. Whereupon the record was read back by the court reporter. By the way, as a quick moment, the court reporter is the true hero. And moving on. The question is, yes, what did you personally do to fulfill your responsibilities for the preparation and fair presentation of financial statement? All I did is authorize and tell people to give whatever's necessary for the accountants to do a statement. In other words, we supplied them with what they needed, and if they didn't get it, they wouldn't do the statement. What people did you authorize? Really, anybody, you know. Sometimes they would call a building, or they would call a project, or maybe perhaps I think 1 or 2 times they wanted to go see a project. They would go out to Westchester and see something that I did out there, and Briarcliff Manor, or do things I authorized. Whatever they needed to get their statement done, they could do. When you said that they would go see a project, are you talking about the firm Mazars? Excuse me? You said that sometimes they would go to see a project, and you mentioned Westchester. Is the they you are referring to Mazars? Yes. Who internally at the Trump Organization would you provide the direction to give Mazars whatever they wanted? Almost anybody. If somebody would ask, for instance, if they would call somebody within the organization in purchasing or whatever, I would give them. But I would do it principally to Alan Wesselberg and Jeff McConney. Any other instructions besides let me withdraw that question? Would you provide Mr. Wesselberg and Mr. McConney with any instructions for how the statement should be prepared? Not really, no. I just wanted them to get the information to the accountants so they could do a statement. If we could turn to page 6 of this document, this is the top. It states, basis of presentation, and says, the accompanying statement of financial condition consists of the assets and liabilities of Donald J. Trump. Assets are stated at their estimated current values and liabilities at their estimated current amounts using various valuation methods. Such valuation methods include, but are not limited to, the use of appraisals, capitalization of anticipated earnings, recent sales and offers, and estimates of current values, as determined by Mr. Trump in conjunction with his associates, and in some instances outside professionals. Let me ask first, Mr. Trump, is it correct that you are responsible for determining the values stated in the financial statement? If somebody would ask me my opinion, I would give it to them. If Mazars would ask me an opinion, which rarely they did. I mean, if you're talking about many years ago, you're talking about over the years, but I think I'm probably more expert than anybody else. I think I, have shown that I know more about real estate than other people. So if somebody would ask me, or if I would have an opinion, I would give it. In light of your expertise in real estate, do you recall ever thinking that the values were off in your statements of financial condition? Yeah, on occasion. What were some of those occasions? Both high and low, both high and low. Which occasions do you recall? I thought that Mar-a-Lago was very underestimated, but I didn't do anything about it. I just left it be. It didn't matter. I didn't care, because the numbers you're talking about here is, they're very big numbers. Very, very big. Far far bigger. The values are far bigger than what is on the financial statement. I thought Mar-a-Lago was underestimated. I thought 40 Wall Street was very underestimated because that building has tremendous value. I thought that there were numerous other things. I thought Doral was very underestimated. I thought it was considerably more valuable. Not necessarily his golf courses, but it is right in the middle of Miami, right next to the airport. I would say you could build thousands of units and hotels on the site. So you don't look at it as a golf course. It's a great golf course, very successful. 4 of them, 4 courses. One was sold, it was 5. One was sold that was a little disconnected and sold it. But I thought Doral was very underestimated, and you yourself had Mar-a-Lago at $28 million. The judge had it at $18 million, and it's worth, I say, from 50 to 100 times more than that. So I don't know how you got those numbers, but the judge ruled against me based on the fact, I guess, that he thought it was worth $18 million, which is just absolutely crazy. The question was examples of when properties were undervalued or overvalued, not why you think so. I may ask you about those as we go on. Your counsel are free to either cross-examine you or call you as a witness, and you can tell the full story as you see fit, but it will go faster if it's fine. You mentioned Mar-a-Lago, 40 Wall, and Doral, and others, but I think that I can think of one that was, I thought, overvalued, and we changed it. I thought the apartment was overvalued when I looked at it. Let me make sure I'm in frame, everybody. But I didn't spend a lot of time looking at this. But when I heard about the apartment and the valuation, I thought it was overvalued. But you never know, because people come along and they will give you an apartment. Was sold fairly recently in New York for $250 million. I like this much better. So I don't know what overvalued means. Somebody comes along. It only takes one very rich person to buy it. But I thought that the apartment was high. But I thought many things were low, and we didn't value the most valuable asset, and I didn't put it on the statement, but it is the most valuable asset is the brand value. And I asked about that, and I really didn't. I didn't put it on the statement. But if you look at companies, the brand value is a very big part of the asset value of a company. I am probably not going to ask you much about brand value. Your attorneys are free to ask you all about brand value. Going back to the estimate. Excuse me, sir, but if I wanted to build up a statement like you said that I would before, found out exactly how rich we are, I would have added brand value here, and I would have increased it by tens of millions of dollars. Do you have an understanding of whether a statement of financial condition prepared under GAAP is allowed to include brand value? It is an asset. Coca-Cola included it and other big companies, public companies, I think they all include brand value. And I became president because of my brand. I sell books at levels that are incredible because of my brand and so many other things. And if I wanted to build up this statement like you are saying, you were very surprised when you saw the real numbers, and now you go a different way. You changed your case midstream. If I wanted to build up my financial statement, all I had to do is to add brand value, and my financial statement would be very, very substantial. Mr. Wallace, did you ask for an essay on brand value? No, Your Honor. My question was, and I will ask it again, Mr. Trump, do you have an understanding of whether a statement of financial condition that is prepared under GAAP is allowed to include brand value? I think it is, because public companies have brand value. Coca-Cola has brand value. And did you ever discuss with Mr. Wesselberg whether or not the rules of GAAP you were allowed to include in your brand value on your statement or financial condition? No, because I didn't care about it. I didn't care whether we added it or not. It wasn't something that was important to me. If I wanted to build up my numbers in a fake way, which you are trying to say, but now you are not, maybe you're going a different direction, but I didn't care enough about it to bother with it. That was a yes or no question. It could have been answered yes or no. Please answer yes or no if you receive such a question. So the statement was primarily prepared by Alan Wesselberg and Jeff McConney. Is that correct? Yes. And they would give you a copy of the statement. Is that correct? Yes, at some point. And you would, in fact, review it. Is that correct? I would in some cases, yes. And as we just discussed, the only example you remember of an asset being higher than you thought should be was your apartment. Is that correct? There were a couple other things I just don't remember. And you are talking about a lot of years ago. Would you discuss the statement with Mr. Wesselberg? Very little. When you say very little, what discussions did you have with Mr. Wesselberg about the statement? I would look it over. I may have a suggestion or something, but very little. It just wasn't very important. You have made it important, but it wasn't important. It wasn't important financially. Most developers don't use accountants for this. They just take a piece of paper and write down the name of the building and the address of the building and what they think it's worth. They don't go through this. I don't believe any developer, at least that I know of, has done a statement so thoroughly as this, and frankly so lowball, as this statement is much less valuable in the terms of the dollar amount than the actuality of wealth or worth. The following proceedings were stenographically recorded by senior court reporter Michael Renita. So now we're moving to the next stenographer. If you'll give me one moment, I will pause for a tea break. So this statement was prepared in a manner that you agree with, that you think was appropriate. That was fine. It was fine. I didn't go into great detail on it, but it was fine. If anything, you think the statement undervalued your assets, is that correct? Well, I do, by a substantial amount. It was the opposite of your case Your case was that I had no money at all. I mean, looking at this year, what could I have some 300 some odd $1 million based on just saw 300? Let me look. But you sued me on the basis that Trump had no money and he wrote up phony statements and defrauded banks, even though they were represented by the biggest law firms in the world and the most sophisticated and best lawyers. And even though these banks were paid back in full, there was no harm. There was no anything. Everybody got their money in full. There was no victim. And then you are saying I deferred it. The banks don't even know what they're doing in this case. They said you paid us back. Your Honor, I move to strike that answer. Granted. And as we all can see, the answer was not stricken. Mr. Keyes, can you control your client? This is not a political rally. This is a courtroom with a case about executive law section 6312. I've asked the witness several times to answer the question. I don't want editorializing. We'll be here forever and we'll accomplish nothing. Maybe you should have a talk with him right now. Your Honor, I'll do as you instruct. You're in control of the courtroom, not me, and I don't mean that disrespectfully. Truly, I don't, but I'm happy to do as you instruct. Again, we are dealing with an extraordinarily unusual situation here. Again is a bad word. I know it is. I know. It's a part of the record. It's an extraordinary situation. It's an extraordinary situation. It would be most efficient, ultimately, to allow the explanation. It's a bench trial. I disagree. Talk to your client for a minute. Okay, then should we take our 10-minute break? And I can't do it here. No. Do you want to go back? You want to go to the back? If we're going to have a conversation, I would ask Your Honor to give us a 10-minute break. Will you spend the 10 minutes in the back explaining the rules here? I think the former and again soon-to-be Chief Executive of the United States understands the rules. He doesn't abide by them. I'm happy to do as you instruct. Again, I think Mr. Wallace's questions still are very broad questions. They do call in some sort of sense. They call for narrative. So I'm happy to restate my last question, Your Honor, and see if we could proceed. The last question was, if anything, do you think the statement undervalued your assets? Is that correct? Yes, by a lot. The financial statements. Yes. Would you discuss the valuation of individual properties with Mr. Wesselberg and Mr. McConney? On occasion, if I disagreed. Do you recall discussing with Mr. Wesselberg and Mr. McConney the valuation of Mar-a-Lago? No. Would they ever ask your opinion about the valuation of 40 Wall Street? They might, yes. Seven Springs? A little bit. It was done largely by a big law firm who testified, as you know. Yes. Are we referring to Sherry Dillon? Yes. Sherry Dillon did the valuation of Seven Springs? Yes. Very much her transaction. She was at the very prestigious firm, one of the most prestigious firms. I think you've already said it, but did you not consider the statement of financial condition to be an important document, correct? It's nice to see, but it's not very important when it comes to borrowing money. As I think you've learned, I'm very under-levered, relevant to the asset value. Why was it nice to see? It's a compilation. We'll use that word that you've been using for 2 weeks. It's a nice restatement of assets. And you go up on some and down on some, but it's a nice compilation of assets. It's a great statement, particularly the year you picked. I had essentially $342 million worth of cash. It's a lot of cash. Sometimes you borrow money for tax purposes because you could deduct interest and other reasons, but it's a lot of cash. The banks came to me. They wanted to make deals with me. They liked me very much. Stricken. For office, Your Honor. Stricken. Once he got into the last sentence or two. Your Honor, I would ask it be stricken after the statement, it was nice to see. It was a nice restatement of assets. Well, or it was a nice compilation of assets. I don't mind the part about how much cash he had, so we'll end it after that. Your Honor, again, noted Mr. Wallace's question, why is it nice to see you? When lawyers are in depositions, they ask questions like, why? That's what they do. When they get to trial, usually what they do is ask more focused questions. Or they sit at counsel table and don't ask questions, and they throw up a bunch of ridiculous questions. Mr. Wallace, are you done? I'm just trying to make a point on the record, and that is, if you ask open-ended questions, then he can anticipate open-ended answers, and it's not fair to put all of this on the witness. I understand Your Honor's instructions. I think the witness does. But if you ask a why question, why questions are usually in depositions, not in trial, unless you already know the answer. The open-ended question was about why it was nice to see. I did not ask about the cash on record. It is not relevant to the answer. I think that's the issue. It's absolutely relevant. That's his opinion. Why? When you ask a witness why, they're going to give you an opinion as to why. Now you've stated your objection. I'm being filibustered by the witness and counsel. I would like to proceed. Okay, just proceed. Going back to the work of Mr. McConney, Mr. Wesselberg, you understood they were making a good faith effort to put down the value of properties. Is that correct? Yes, I did. You understand that they used common sense to prepare the statements. Is that correct? I hope so. I don't know, but I hope so. And as we stated, if anything, you thought the valuations they reached were low, correct? Absolutely. Well, that's been proven. Okay, let's go through a few of those valuations. If we could turn to page 8, whereupon the exhibit was displayed on the screen. Of this document, the top we see, make sure I'm in frame again, everybody. This is the Nike Town property. If we look at the middle paragraph here, the third paragraph, it states the estimated current value of $348,800,000 is based on an evaluation by Mr. Trump in conjunction with his associates and outside professionals, applying a capitalization rate to the cash flow to be derived pursuant to the building's net rental stream. Do you believe that statement to be true and accurate? No. How is it inaccurate? The net rental stream is one way, but the bigger value here is hold up. Well, it's not a nice term in real estate, but it's called hold up value. I'm I'm directly with that site and behind, and next to the 57th Street, which is probably the best location. 57th and 5th. It's the best location in New York. I'm directly next to Tiffany. They cannot expand without us, and I'm directly next to IBM. So I'm between IBM and Tiffany, and the holdup value is $348 million for holdups, you know. Probably what I mean, if you know real estate, it's peanuts compared to what the value is. So I view that it's a great property. It's a great rental stream, as you probably figured out, but it's got much more value as a holdup. They could come to me and offer me $500 million for that site in 2 minutes if they wanted to expand or if they wanted to do something. This statement, however, is the estimated current value as of June 30th, 2014. Yes, so the $500 million price you just referred to, that is as of today, correct? No, I would say it would be as of any time. I'm not asking for further explanation. It could be any time. It could be then. It could be now. So there's no change of value of this $500 million value since 2014. Well, I don't want to sell it. If I wanted to sell it, I had discussions with Tiffany for years about possibly doing something. In fact, they rented from me right now for a lot of money. But Tiffany used, as you know, as you possibly heard, when Tiffany was rebuilding their store, they came to me and they wanted to do something, and I leased it to them for a period of time. But they would love to be the owner of that site. My point is, it's a holdup. It's not a nice word, but it's a holdup site, and holdup sites in New York the question was, had there been a change of value since 2014? And you said, I don't want to sell it. So I take it the answer is no. Now, I think it's gotten more valuable like everything else. So you do not think that this statement in your 2014 Statement of Financial Condition is accurate, correct? Well, it's a great rental stream, but I think the real value here is, it would be for IBM or Tiffany if they wanted to say, and they do, at least Tiffany does. This statement says that the estimate was based on a valuation by Mr. Trump in conjunction with his associates and outside professionals. What was your role in prepare that valuation? I think I mentioned to them the value of that is it makes a lot of money, throws off a lot of money, as you see, because you see the numbers, and now more than ever, because Tiffany had to pay us a lot of money in order to lease it. I just wanted to lease it. We gave them a 5-year lease while they built their store. They are building, as you know, they just opened, but they would love to own it, and so would, I believe, IBM. I don't talk to IBM at all, but they can't expand without it. I believe that. I did mention quickly, I didn't know this wasn't something I devoted a lot of time to, but I did mention to them that there's a tremendous holdup value on that site. Again, 57th Street, you have Tiffany, IBM, and you have my building right in the middle of them. And if they want to expand anywhere, they have to go through my building. And I bought the air rights. Hold on. Excuse me, I bought the air rights over Tiffany, so they can't go up. In addition to the answers being non-responsive, they are repetitive, and we don't have time to waste. We have 1 day with this witness. Can you control your witness? Because I'm considering drawing a negative inference. Oh, sorry. Wrong highlight, everybody. This is the court still. My bad. We have 1 day with this witness. Mr. Kais, can you control your witness? Because I'm considering drawing a negative inference to any questions that might be asked. Well, I would urge Your Honor not to draw the negative inference. We have a record on that, which I won't go into. But I think the witness is doing his best to answer the questions and be as responsive as possible. If you think that it would be beneficial for us to take a break, I'm happy to do that. This is Your Honor's courtroom, so I'll do as you suggest. But again, there the questions are calling, maybe not as broadly as the answer, but they're not tight questions. I mean, we are seeing, quote, why questions. We are seeing how questions. I mean, this is not someone who is a professional lawyer or a witness, so he's answered based on his responses and the reactions to his questions. Mr. Trump, you testified under oath many times, correct? Yes. The question was, what did you do based on an evaluation of Mr. Trump in conjunction or his associates and outside professionals? And you said you talked to them about the holdup value. Is there anything else you did in preparing this valuation in 2014? No, I don't think so. Did you ultimately approve this valuation? No. Did you approve the issuance of this statement? I think they did something with it because when I told them about the holdup value, they said, well, you're right. Who is they? The people compiling the statement? It could have been Mazars too. Did you, I don't know, make a big deal? I didn't make a big deal. I didn't ask you if you made a big deal. I'm asking if you told Mazars about the holdup value for the 2014 statement of financial condition. It's a long time ago. I probably did, but I told Jeff and I told Alan. Okay. Do you believe that the stated value of the $348 million was based on true and accurate information? Make sure I'm in frame, everybody. Well, as a holdup, I think it was very low. I'm not asking about the holdup. I'm asking about whether you have an understanding of whether this valuation in your statement of financial condition was based on true and accurate information. It's a yes or no question. Well, I'll say it differently. I wouldn't sell it for that number. If somebody offered me that number, I wouldn't sell it for that number. I'm not asking your individual valuation. I'm not asking for your analysis. I'm just asking if whether the information that Mr. McConney and Mr. Wesselberg used was true and accurate when they reached this number. I guess so. I really can't answer that. I guess so. It's a number I wouldn't sell it for. Okay. Can we move down to the bottom of this page? Whereupon the exhibit displayed on the screen was scrolled through. We have the header for 40 Wall Street, and if we flip over the next page, you'll see the valuation for 40 Wall Street. The top paragraph states this estimated current value of $550 million and $100,000 is based upon a successful renegotiation of ground lease and the evaluation made by Mr. Trump in conjunction with his associates and outside professionals of leases that have been signed or are currently the subject of negotiation and capitalization rate applied to the result cash flow to be derived from the building's operations. Do you believe that statement I just read is true and accurate? I don't believe. It depends on how you look at it. But I don't believe it talks about making of the building the condominium, residential condominium, which is absolutely a perfect use for that building. My question is, even though it's full, is this statement true and accurate? Well, let's see. So, number one, you go back a long time. Are you still in 2014? We are still on the 2014 statement. 5-year statute of limitations. You're still in 2014. So it says here, based upon successful renegotiation of the ground lease. Well, that was done. I did that. I made a new 100-year lease and a very good lease and long-term, very long-term. I got a lollipop in the lease. It's a legal term. Believe it or not, but it's a lollipop, which allows you to build condominiums because you own the land. You own a piece of the land. That gives you the right to build condominiums. So this would be a low number because the highest and best use for that building is I think it's the tallest building in downtown after the World Trade Center, but there's a dispute about 60 Pine Street, but whatever. The tower is, or perfect measurement for turning them into condos, and I have the right to do that, and at some point we or somebody will do that. That's the highest and best use, in which case $550 million is a low number. All you have to do is look at the picture of the building and say, that building, you just look at it and you say, that's worth a lot more than $550 million. If you want to put up the picture, my question is, Mr. Keyes, that was a simple yes or no question. I don't have it right in front of me, but the question was whether he believed that was an accurate number. We got another speech. I would beseech you to control him if you can't. If you can't, I will. I will excuse him and draw every negative inference that I can. Do you understand that? I certainly understand, Your Honor, but I will say this. The purpose of this trial is to determine the veracity of the statement of financial condition, in part to figure out whether there's intent. So I would think respectfully, Your Honor, of all witnesses would want to hear everything that this witness has to say by way No, I do not want to hear everything this witness has to say. He has a lot to say that has nothing to do with the case or the questions. Again, Your Honor, I have to say that you're determining what's going to happen here. So I would urge the court to take in all the information possible, including what this witness has to say about the numbers on the statement, what he did, why he did it. I mean, all those circumstances. Do we really have to come back here in a few weeks and go through it that way? I mean, with this witness, I would suggest it's far more efficient to listen to what he has to say and take in, then you have an understanding of what he has to say. But I don't think it's fair to draw a negative inference based on his explanation simply because he wants to explain why he got to where he was. We are talking about 10 years ago, and so ordinarily, with a witness, you might think differently. But this is a situation where you have on the stand a candidate for the presidency of the United States. Having him here takes away from that effort, and so the most efficient way I would submit to the court to get through this is to listen to what he has to say, and then you weigh it one way or the other. I don't think you should respectfully draw a negative inference, and again, I'm happy to discuss and take a break. More than happy to do that. I'm not saying not to do that, but I just would like the court to take in that perspective because this is a different situation. It's an unusual situation, and it would be most efficient. The court needs to hear what he has to say about what happened with the statements and why he thinks they are viable and why there is no intent. He's describing to you why there's no intent to mislead anyone with his answers. That's what he's doing. And so I would think that's highly relevant and highly probative. If you want to do it the way where we have yes or no questions and then we go back and do it, it's subject to your direction. But I think the most efficient way is to listen to what he has to say. I'm happy to talk to him about making the answers more contained. We certainly don't want to waste any more time than necessary and spend any more time than necessary, but this is, as you've acknowledged, this is a unique situation. If I may also add, Your Honor, I had to cross-examine Mr. Cohen. If I could get him to answer the questions in yes or no, I advised Mr. Wallace to look at that cross-examination. It was far more succinct. The reality of the situation is he put up 2 paragraphs which talk about interest rates and the current value, as well as tenants and etc., etc., etc. If he would like to narrow it, then you narrow it. But President Trump is answering about 40 Wall Street and the values, the interest rates, and the purpose of the SOFC. That is absolutely relevant. So I'm going to push back and say it is time to start pushing back on the AG. Kevin can try to ask better questions, and then we'll move on. But he is relevant. He is talking about 2 paragraphs of information, and he's explaining them. Ask succinct questions, you'll get succinct answers. Well, Mr. Kais, I think you said several times we should hear what he did, what the witness has to say. No, I'm not here, and these people are not here, and the Attorney General is not here to hear what he has to say. We are here to hear him answer questions, and most of the time, he's not. He goes into speeches. It's very simple. Is this an accurate number? We don't need a whole speech. It's not that simple. I apologize. It's not that simple, and you're here to hear what he has to say. No, I'm not here to hear what he has to say. Thank you. I'm here to hear him answer questions. Sit down already. Mr. Kais, Mrs. Haba, sit down. Continue. Mr. Wallace, continue. This is a very unfair trial. Very, very, and I hope the public's watching it. Mr. Trump, was the valuation presented here based on leases and capitalization rates true and accurate to your belief? It could be, but again, what I told you is the building has many different forms of value, and this building, the most valuable asset here is making it into condominiums. It would happen as soon as interest rates go down, and as soon as the city maybe comes back. It would be nice if it came back, wouldn't it? But the big value of this is making it into condominiums, residential condominium. Could we put up, it would be one of the biggest jobs in the city. Could we put up Plaintiff's Exhibit 635? It's already in evidence, but I have an extra copy for the witness. Whereupon the exhibit was displayed on the screen. There is a very thick document I'm not going to ask you to go through all of it, but it is an email from Jeff McConney to Jack Wesselberg, Ladder Capital, attaching a modification of the ground lease. The email is dated April 10th of 2015. If you go to page 3 of this document, whereupon the exhibit displayed on the screen was scrolled through. I'll put it up on the screen for you. You could see at the top, title says this is a resume of the 4th modification of the ground lease on 40 Wall Street, NYC. We flip over to page 4, whereupon the exhibit on the screen was scrolled through. Do we have a copy of this document for the witness? He has a copy. I'm sorry? It's already in evidence. If we look at the header, condominium conversion right, it states paragraph 4 eliminates the tenant's condominium conversion rights, which it had under section 2709. Do you recall that in this statement to the ground lease, your condominium conversion rights were eliminated? I'll pause for one moment for a tea break, everyone. One moment, please. No, because I have a right to do a co-op. You could do a condo, but I have the right to do a co-op. I believe I have a right to do a condo because we have a lollipop clause, but I have a right to do a co-op. If we go back to the statement of financial condition, that's Exhibit 730, whereupon the exhibit was displayed on the screen. We were on page 9, whereupon the exhibit displayed on the screen was scrolled through. Did this valuation include the lollipop conversion that you were talking about? I don't know. It was around that time. I renegotiated the lease and got a new lease, and one of the things in the lease was a lollipop conversion. My question is about this statement, though, which says, quote, the valuation is based on leases that have been signed and capitalization rate, end quote. There's no mention here of converging to condos, is there? Well, I know what you're asking. You're talking about the estimated current value, and the estimated current value would be co-op, condo. I'm not asking about what you could do. I'm asking about what was actually prepared. I don't know because I didn't do it. Make sure I'm in frame, everyone. Okay. Was the stated value, let me ask, did you approve this valuation? I accepted it. It was just one of many. This is a very big statement. I have many different things, and this is one of many values. I accepted it. I didn't say, oh, gee, it should be higher or lower. And you approved the statement's issuance? Yeah, I accepted it. Other people did it, but I didn't say make it higher or make it lower. Was the $550 million valuation here based on true and accurate information? I assume so. If we could move on to page 20 of 26 here, whereupon the exhibit was displayed on the screen. And if we see at the bottom of the page is the listing for the mansion at Seven Springs. I'll direct your attention to the paragraph. First sentence in this listing says, an entity wholly owned by Mr. Trump acquired a property known as the Mansion at Seven Springs in Bedford, New York, which consists of over 200 acres of land, a mansion, and other buildings. This property is zoned for 9 luxurious homes. It has been valued at $291 million based on an assessment made by Mr. Trump in conjunction with his associates of the projected net cash flow, which either derived as those units are constructed and sold and the estimated fair value of the existing mansion and the other buildings. Do you have an understanding of whether that $291 million valuation is true and accurate? I thought it was too high and we lowered it. I guess the next statement or something, but I thought it was too high. This is the equivalent of Mar-a-Lago in New York, and I think it sells for, I think it's valued, I think the value is higher if you don't build additional housing. This is the kind of, it's a magnificent place. This is the kind of place that somebody will pay a lot of money for. I think more money than if you build 9 or 16 or 20 units of other homes on the site. I think the site, as I remember, is 213 acres, and I think it's much more valuable actually without the building. I think it's more valuable the way it is. Your Honor, I think maybe we need to take a break now, and if Mr. Kais could talk to the witness, I think I would appreciate it. Let's take, how long a break do you suggest? Make it 15 minutes or so it's easy, a 15-minute break. Thank you. I'll direct the witness not to talk about the case or his testimony other than in the ways that I've asked. Okay, and we're back, everybody. The court took a 10-minute, 15-minute break, and now we are back. Mr. Wallace, please continue. Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Trump, when we broke, we were looking at the valuation of your Seven Springs in your 2014 statement of financial condition. I believe you said that the valuation you said eventually dropped that valuation. Is that correct? Yes. Did you eventually take a tax deduction based on the easement donation for Seven Springs? I believe so, yes. You recall receiving appraisals showing that the total value of Seven Springs before the easement was $56 million? No, I don't know. It could have happened, but I don't remember. Do you remember if the easement appraisal was the reason for dropping the value of the Seven Springs? No. The person that did that, I believe, was Sherry Dillon. That was the law firm we mentioned, and a very good one, very prestigious, and she really was responsible for doing it. It was sort of, I think, her idea to do it. So, when you say the person that did that, the that you're referring to, easement, is the easement donation itself? Yes. So, if you did not decide to lower the value of Seven Springs based on the appraisal from the easement donation, what was the basis upon which you decided to drop the value? Well, I thought it was high. I mean, I saw that when I saw it on the statement was done, and I said, I thought that was high. That was one of the ones that was high. That doesn't mean it's not going to get that kind of money, because that's the kind of place that would get that kind of, from the right person. But I thought it was high, and they dropped it, and they dropped the value. And so, in your view, the estimated current value of Seven Springs as of June 30th, 2014 was not $291 million. Is that correct? I thought it was high. Maybe I'll sell it for more than that. You don't know. With that kind of property, you never know, but I thought it was high. Is the Seven Springs easement donation under review by the IRS? No, not that I know of. It might be. Was it at any point under review by the IRS? I don't know. Do you remember when you decided to lower the value of Seven Springs? Well, I guess probably when I looked. I don't know if I looked immediately upon, because again, I haven't spent a lot of time on these statements because I realized the value of these statements is not that important. But when I looked at it, I thought it was high, and I said, you have to lower it. So the answer is no, you don't remember when you decided to lower the value? I don't remember. It might not have been immediately, but it was, within a period of time. If we could turn to page 21 of 26, this is a section of your statement of financial condition entitled Partnerships and Joint Ventures. And there's a reference to a joint venture that is the 2019 Avenue of Americas in New York, New York, and 555 California Street in San Francisco, California. Are you familiar with those properties? Yes. Underneath that, it states, quote, in May of 2007, Mr. Trump and Vornado Realty Trust became partners in two properties, 1290 Avenue in the Americas, located in New York City, and 555 California Street, formerly known as Bank of America Center, located in San Francisco, California. If we look down a few more paragraphs, it states Mr. Trump owns 30% of these properties. Is that accurate? Yes. And so you do not control the partnership with Vornado, is that correct? In many ways, it's better because I have no liability. I'm a limited partner. That's limited liability. I have 30% interest, but my interest, I don't have to put up any money. I didn't put up any money, and I don't have to. I have a very good relationship with them. They are great and very professional, but it's also limited. It was limited, and I had no liability for what I own. So it was a lot of people don't understand that. They think that a limited partnership gives you limited rights. In this case, it gives me limited liability. That question was, so you do not control the partnership with Vornado, is that correct? I have 30% of that partnership, yes. And so you do not control the partnership? In the true sense, no. I will say this, we have a very good relationship. And no, you answered the question. Never had a problem. and we appreciate that it is the true answer. Thank you. The next paragraph states the estimated current value net of debt of $816 million, $900,000, is based on an evaluation made by Mr. Trump in conjunction with his associates and outside professionals. Make sure I'm in frame, everyone. Is that a true and accurate statement that you valued the property based on conjunction with your associates and outside professionals? I don't know, because I'm not familiar with the number. But I do know that, as you know, the one building in the Bank of America building, I think the best building on the West Coast, and the other is a very great building in Manhattan on 6th Avenue in the Americas. We refinanced that building about 3 years ago at a very, very low rate, and there were valuations placed on it then. And if you want, I can get you that information, but the valuations were very high. The question was whether you made an evaluation in conjunction with your associates and outside professionals of the value of those two properties. I don't know. It doesn't sound high to me. Not for these two buildings, so I don't know. I'm going to ask it again. The question is whether or not you made an evaluation of the property value. Is that a double property right there? Is that both properties? Both properties. It doesn't sound high. I don't know if I was involved in that. I remember looking at it, but it didn't get my attention. I think it was worth more than that. Do you remember playing any role in evaluating the estimated current value of these two properties for any years between 2011 and 2021? 2021? Correct. You mean bringing it back to all the way for the last 10 years, that 10-year period. By the way, that was the hottest period ever for office properties, so I think you should know that. And you don't want me to talk much, but I think you should know that. No, I think the value sounds very reasonable. I don't know. I doubt it. I don't know that I would sell my interest for that, actually. I'm going to hand the witness a document and ask the officer, and excuse me, the buildings have been refinanced 2 years ago. There is no question pending. Mr. Trump, I've handed you a document that's been marked as Plaintiff's Exhibit 3344. This is an email from Jeff McConney to Donald Bender entitled Ferry Point. It is dated October 1st, 2012. Your Honor, I ask this document be entered into evidence. Objection! Statute of limitations! Overruled. It is in evidence. Whereupon the document referred to was deemed marked for evidence as Plaintiff's Exhibit 3344 by the court. Pause for one moment for a tea break. I don't think I've ever used a statute of limitations objection in court before, but to each their own. At the top, there's an email from Mr. McConney to Mr. Bender. It says, Doc, I'm almost done revising last year's footnotes. Alan wants us to speak to DJT tomorrow about the Vornado buildings. I'm going to send you a few emails with some info on new properties, Doral and Charlotte, and an update to the Scotland footnote. I want to ask if this refreshes your recollection about whether you had conversations with Mr. McConney and Mr. Wesselberg about the value of the Vornado properties. About the Vornado buildings? Correct. No, but I probably did. If we can go back to the statement of financial condition, and if we could blow up the section with the valuation there, the estimated current value and the amount of debt. Mr. Trump, do you believe that the stated value here of $816 million was based on true and accurate information? I think so. I hope so. I can't say. If you go to 2021, where it is more familiar to me because it is more updated, I think that would be a low number. Were you involved in the preparation of the 2021 statement? No. Who was responsible for the preparation? I don't know. That was when it was in trust, so I assume Alan and Jeff, and perhaps they dealt a little bit with Don and Eric, but they were not involved with these statements very much at all. And as I understand it, would you get copies of the statements in 2021? I hadn't seen it. I was so busy in the White House. My threshold was China, Russia, and keeping our country safe. My question is actually about 2021. Did you see a copy of the 2021 statement? I don't believe so. And just to clarify for the record, you weren't president in 2021, correct? No, I wasn't. if we could turn back, if we could go back to page 23 of 26 in this document, and if we could look at the bottom of the page on the category of other assets, it says Trump Tower. Mr. Trump owns a triplex apartment on the top 3 floors of Trump Tower. See Note 3. I'll just represent to you that Note 3 doesn't discuss your apartment. It discusses the building. Were you involved in the valuation of your triplex apartment for this statement of financial condition? No. What date is it? 2014. No, I wasn't. Did there come a time when you determined that the valuation of your triplex apartment was too high? Yes, it did. After you made that determination, did Ms. Wesselberg and Mr. McConney lower the valuation of your triplex apartment? I believe so, yes. Did they do that at your direction? I told them I thought it was too high. I thought the number was too high. And I know they lowered it after that, yes. If we could pull up Plaintiff's Exhibit 758, this is a spreadsheet, so it is only going to be up on the screen here. And if we could go to row 893, make sure I'm in frame, everybody. There we go. This is a category Other Assets, and if we look down, if we could go down to rows 969 to 971, this shows the valuation of your apartment. I'll represent to you that the valuation of the apartment is not actually in the statement of financial condition, it is incorporated. So this is where we are going to try and find it. I think that's why I missed it also. Okay, and if you look, you can see here, I'll represent to you that column G are the values of 2013. Column H is the value of 2014. So you can see it goes from $116 million in 2013 to $327 million in 2014. And so it's your understanding that the 327 million valuation is too high? Yeah. And the reason I didn't pick it up sooner is that I thought it was high, but it's not mentioned. It's not broken down in the financial statement, so I wouldn't have known. Okay, and I'm sorry. This is the statement of financial condition for 2017, so I misrepresented. That's okay. The 2017 number is in G and the 2016 number is in H, so I apologize. Sorry, just to make the record clear, Kevin, this is the backup, not the SOFC. Correct. I think you said SOFC on the record. And this is the backup for 2017. So showing a change from 2016 to 2017. And this change in valuation came at your direction? Probably. I thought it was too high. I don't know what is too high anymore because I'm seeing things being sold at numbers that are very high. But I thought it was too high, so I assumed that they didn't. Do you have an understanding of why the valuation was too high? Well, I have heard different reasons, but one of the reasons was they did it off a broker. A broker was sending lists of apartments and they had it down to 30,000 feet. Is it 30? And another one was that, I have the roof. We have access to the roof, which is very big. And when you add the roof, it's not that far off. And there are a lot of other reasons. And there's another reason. They just made a mistake. And that's why we have a disclaimer clause in case there's a mistake. There's a disclaimer clause where you don't have to get sued by the Attorney General of New York. Mr. Trump, as you sit here today, do you know how big your triplex apartment is? You wouldn't know. I have heard, obviously, because of the trial, they say 11 to 12 to 13,000 feet. At your deposition testimony, does it sound correct that you testified that each floor of Trump Tower is about 10,000 square feet? As the floor, and it is a triplex, and I think they probably took 10,000 feet per floor. I could see how it was done. They took 10,000 feet per floor because the floors are, I believe, about 10,000 feet, and they went times 3. But they didn't take out, elevator shafts and different things. Okay. I would like to go back to the 2014 statements of financial condition. F, if could go to page 10 of 26. This is the heading for club facilities and related real estate. And if we scroll down, this is the listing for Mar-a-Lago. If you look, I'll read it into the record. It states, Mr. Trump acquired this property in 1985 and transferred ownership to a wholly owned limited liability company in 1995. It is now an exclusive private club, which consists of 117 rooms, formerly known as the Majority Meriwether Post States. It features 20,000 square foot Louis XIV style ballroom, world-class dining, tennis courts, spa, cabanas, and guest cottages. I'm going to direct your attention to where it states that the property is an exclusive private club. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. And is it correct that the ownership of the club was transferred to a wholly owned limited liability company in 1995? I guess so. If you represent, I would say yes. Well, I'm asking if you know whether or not the representation here, which is that it was transferred to a wholly owned limited liability company in 1995, do you know if that's correct? No, but it is probably so because I've done that with many properties over the years. Is Mar-a-Lago today still wholly owned? Is the ownership of Mar-a-Lago today still underneath a wholly owned limited liability company? I believe it is the same, and there is no separate valuation for Mar-a-Lago on the statement of financial conditions in this century, correct? You know, I have no mortgage on Mar-a-Lago, no debt. There's no debt. There's no reason to do it. So I don't know if they did it or not, but there's no debt, zero on Mar-a-Lago. My question is just that the price of Mar-a-Lago, or the, I should say, estimated current value of Mar-a-Lago, is not listed here, is it? No, it's not. It is not. Okay. If we pull up the supporting data for this statement of financial condition, Plaintiff's Exhibit 719, this is, I'll represent to you the supporting spreadsheet for 2014. Do I have this wrong? Okay, if we could go down to row 189 and actually go down to the club facilities, 205, you see the entry is at 207 for Mar-a-Lago, and underneath that states value if sold to an individual. That is referencing to selling the property to an individual as a residence. Is that correct? Yes, that's right. Did you approve valuing Mar-a-Lago as if it could be sold to an individual as a residence? I personally, well, did I approve it on this? I don't know. There are two ways you can approve it, as a club or as a residence or both. It is most valuable as both. Make sure I'm in frame, everyone. And here it is being valued as residence, correct? I guess so. What's the number? We will get to the number in a minute. I was just wondering, did you at some point discuss with Mr. McConney or Mr. Wesselberg valuing Mar-a-Lago as a private home? I don't remember that, no. If we go down to just go down to the bottom, row 242. Do you see a value listed for Mar-a-Lago? Yes. Is $405,362,123 as of June 30th, 2014. Did you approve that valuation number? No, but it seems very low. So do you agree with that number? No. It is much more valuable than that. Much. We are bringing in an expert so that they will explain to you what it's worth. I'll ask you a question. You believe as of today, Mar-a-Lago is worth at least $1.5 billion. Is that correct? How much? $1.5 billion. I think between $1 billion and $1.5 billion, yes. As of June 30th of 2014, though, do you have a view as to how much Mar-a-Lago was worth at the time? More than this number? I don't know, but much more than this number. Mr. Trump, we are going to hand you a copy of a document that's already in evidence. This has been stamped as Plaintiff's Exhibit 1013. This is the deed of development rights for the Mar-a-Lago Club, and I'll direct you to it up to the screen. If you could turn to page 2 of the document just quickly. Do you see your 2 signatures? Yes. There. Okay. If we go back to the first page under the third whereas clause, and I'll read it into the record for you and highlight it here. It states, quote, whereas the club and Trump intend to forever extinguish their right to development or use the property for any purpose other than club use, end quote. Was it in fact your intent to forever extinguish your right to use the property for any purpose other than club use? Well, when you say intend doesn't mean we will do. That's number one. It says intent. I intend. But we have the right to change it back to a house. I intend it. I would always leave it as a club or a club and a residence, which is really the best combination, which is what it is right now. It's a residence and it's a club, and a very successful club at that. Sure, I'm in frame, everyone. I take it your answer was that yes, you did intend to do this. Yeah, I did intend. I intend, but I also have the right, if I wanted to, there's no reason to do that, to switch it back. Switching it back would be contrary to forever extinguishing something, though, wouldn't it? No. It says to intend. It doesn't say that. It says to intend. It doesn't say I will. It says intend. But I don't mind leaving it as a club. In fact, if somebody actually wanted it, the smartest thing to do, because there's a lot of advantages to a club status, the smartest thing to do would be to have a club and have one member, and then that member that lives in the club, but it is much more valuable, and we will show that in 2 weeks or 5 weeks or 9 weeks or whatever this thing goes. That it is the biggest value is to be able to use it as a club and a residentially simultaneously. If we look at the next paragraph, it states, whereas the National Trust for Historic Preservation in the United States, National Trust, is the grantee of the deed of conservation and preservation easement recorded April 6th of 1995 in Official Record Book 8691, page 764 of the Public Records of Palm Beach County, Florida, the preservation easement. As reflected here, you had in fact granted a preservation easement to the National Trust for Historic Preservation in 1995. Is that correct? That's correct. If you look down at the next paragraph, it states, quote, whereas the preservation easement limits changes to the property, including without limitations, the division of subdivision of the property for any purpose, including use as a single-family homes, the interior renovation of the mansion, which may be necessary and desirable for sale of the property as a single-family residence estate, the construction of new buildings, and the obstruction of open vistas. Yeah. As reflected in the 1995 preservation easement then, it was prohibited to renovate the interior of the mansion in a way which may be necessary or desirable for the sale of a property as a single-family residential estate. Is that correct? It was a single-family home. It was the home of E.F. Hutton and Marjorie Merriweather Post. I don't think anybody would want to touch it. It's designed as a home, and it was converted into a club very successfully, and it does great, and that's where it is. But this is, you don't have to do anything to convert it. And also, the easement really talks about views. It's only a view easement. If I want to build something, I go to the National Trust. I build a ballroom as an example. I built a very big ballroom there. The ballroom you mentioned in your last page was built by me. And it is very large, beautiful. And what happens is, if I want to development other parts of the property, but not in the view corridor, it's called a view corridor. It is a certain view corridor from the main windows of the living room. But on the side, what is called the side corridors, I have the right to develop if I want to. But this is a little like we were talking about Seven Springs. This property is more valuable without building houses on it. It's much more valuable, actually, in this case. After this deed of development rights, you stated publicly that Mar-a-Lago would forever be a club, didn't you? That is what? You stated that Mar-a-Lago would forever be a club. Is that correct? No, I don't think so. I mean, it says intents. I would personally never change it if somebody later on, including my children, if they want to change it, I believe they would have the right to do that if they wanted to. Mr. Trump, the court officer, is handing you a document that's been marked Plaintiff's Exhibit 1730. Handy. This is an article from the Palm Beach Post dated August 27th of 2023. And if you look at the bottom of the page, there's a quote from you. It states, "We waited until it became a great success," Trump said, "and the Mar-a-Lago Club is a great success. It will forever be a club." That was your statement, correct? Yeah. In 2003, the Mar-a-Lago Club would forever be a club? Well, I hope so. I mean, I think that was said with bravado as opposed to legal intent. It will be for, as long as I'm around, it will be a club and I will live there. And I apologize for interrupting. Yeah, please. By making sure it was forever a club, you paid less in taxes on the property. Is that correct? A club will pay less in taxes, correct? And that says that if we look at the fourth paragraph here, it states, "We pay less tax," Trump said Tuesday. "Now we are treated like the Bath and Tennis and the other clubs." That's correct. Pay less taxes. Not too many clubs. You pay much less tax. Make sure I'm in frame, everybody. Hold on here. Just 1 minute. I apologize. Right. Your Honor, I ask this document to be entered into evidence. For what purpose are they introducing this document? He has admitted these are his statements at this time. So all of his statements in here will be admitted? The statements of Mr. Trump only. It is in evidence. The statement where it says if it didn't work out as a club, they would go back to some other use, that's acceptable as well. The one you didn't show the witness? The one on the bottom? I'll ask him about that then. Yeah, you should. Mr. Trump, if you look to the second to last paragraph of the page, we will highlight it for you. It states, if it didn't work out as a club, we should have gone back to some other use. Is that accurate? I believe so, yes. I believe Your Honor has overruled the objection, and this is in evidence. Is that correct? Yes, the entire document is in evidence, whereupon the document referred to was deemed marked for evidence as Plaintiff's Exhibit 1730 by the court. Mr. Trump, I would like to hand you another document. This one's marked as Defendant's Exhibit 478. Mr. Trump, in order to win approval to convert Mar-a-Lago to a club, you took the position that it was impractical for a single individual to continuously own Mar-a-Lago as a private estate at his or her sole expense. Is that correct? Yeah, probably in those days. That was a long time ago. Well, I can show you. This document is the Mar-a-Lago. If we turn to the second page, please. Sure. It is the Mar-a-Lago Club's special exception use and preservation plan. Do you remember submitting this plan to Palm Beach in order to convert? Yes, I did. Your Honor, we would ask the defendant's 478 be marked into evidence. Granted, it is in, whereupon the document referred to was deemed marked as evidence as Defendant's Exhibit 478 by the court. Oh, goodness. All right, here we go. If we look at page 6 of this document, I believe it states at the top, as to item 1, I'll represent to you that item 1 is private ownership of Mar-a-Lago. It states, quote, it is impractical for a single individual to continuously own Mar-a-Lago as a private estate at his or her sole expense. When the Post Foundation marketed the property after its return to the foundation from the U.S. government, it was almost impossible to sell. About 80 qualified buyers thoroughly screened and inspected Mar-a-Lago and elected against even making an offer. H. Ross Perot was one prospect. Although everything is for sale at a price, no one would step forward to make offers for this so-called white elephant, and cites to articles from the Miami Herald and the Palm Beach Post-Times. Is it correct? Was this statement correct at the time it was made? Yeah, luckily. I take it is now your position that it is no longer a white elephant? That's true. There's a man building a house down the road spending $1 billion to build it, and it ain't Mar-a-Lago. They are spending $1 billion down the road. If we could go back to the statement of financial condition. That's Exhibit 730. Mr. Trump, I'd like to focus on your golf club at Aberdeen. Make sure I'm in frame, everyone. So if we could go to page 16 of 26, here we see the listing for Mr. Trump International Golf Club in Scotland, Aberdeen. I am just going to read into the record the description of the club here. It states, Mr. Trump thoroughly wholly owned entities acquiring 500 hectares, approximately 1,236 acres of land on the northeast coast of Aberdeenshire. The development received outline planning permission in December of 2008 for a world-class Martin Hawtree designed championship golf links golf course, suitable for hosting major events, a second future award-winning 18-hole course, a luxury clubhouse, a state-of-the-art driving range and golf academy, a tennis center, an equestrian center, a luxury 5-star 450-room hotel with associated conference and banquet facilities, a full-time spa, a residential village consisting of 950 holiday homes and 500 single-family residences, and 36 golf villas. Start there. Was that description of the club as June 30th of 2014 true and accurate? Probably. But we could do more or less. We could do a bigger job, a smaller job. The following proceeding was stenographically recorded by senior court reporter. So we're moving on from stenographers. This is just a note to note the change. Do you believe it was accurate that as of December 2008, you had received an outline tenant permission for residential village consisting of 950 holiday homes? Yeah. And 500 single-family golf residences and 36 villas. Yes, Aberdeen is the oil capital of Europe. Very rich. Irrelevant. You answered the question. It is. There's no valuation value for the Aberdeen property listed in this paragraph, correct? I don't know. Okay, it's not. So why don't we put back up Plaintiff's Exhibit 719, whereupon the exhibit was displayed on the screen. This is the supporting spreadsheet for the 2014 Statement of Financial Condition. If we could go to row 481, please, whereupon the exhibit displayed on the screen was scrolled through. 418 here, we see the listing for Trump International Golf Club Scotland. That's your club in Aberdeen. Is that correct? Yeah, right. Make sure I'm in frame here. If we look over in column G, we could see the valuation for 213. I will rephrase that question. In column G, we see the valuation as of June 30th of 2013. In column H, we see the valuation as of June 30th, 2014. Do you see that, or do you see the dates? Do I see what? The dates at the top. G is, I'll direct you to it. Yes, I do. June 30th, 2013. H is June 30th, 2014. Right. Okay, let's go down and take a look at those valuations, which I believe are down on 43 or 46. Whereupon the exhibit displayed on the screen was scrolled through. No, I was wrong. If we stop here, it's in 527. So you could see the valuations in, as of June 30th, 2013, $191 million. And as of June 30th, 2014, the valuation is $435 million. Yeah. Do you see that difference? Yes, I do. You did not build a second golf course at Aberdeen between June 2013 and June 2014. I'm building it now. So you had not done it by June 2014. No, I didn't. The first one, it was very successful, and then the second one, and then basically you would have 1,000 acres of land. You had 1,230 some odd acres. It's a lot of land by the ocean, and it was a big development job. I could do it anytime I want. I just don't really want to do it. I don't really need to build 2,000 or 1,500 houses in Aberdeen. I don't want to do it. This is an artistic expression. I think it's the greatest golf club ever built. I believe it is. And we've gotten reviews saying that we are close to that. It's one of the greatest pieces of land I've ever seen, and we have now one course. We built a clubhouse, we built the roads, we built everything. I'm no rush to build. I'm not looking to build a lot of things. I'm doing other things right now, but it's an unbelievable site. We can build more than what you showed in the plan, or less than what you showed in the plan. But I don't want to build anything. I just want to sit with it. It's called an investment. So I just want to make sure I heard that last part. You're not planning to build anything as of today? Well, I'm building right is now. Apart from the golf course, you're not planning on building any housing developments? I'm sort of preparing the site because I'm putting up the second course and it's under construction. It'll be done in a year. And then we have all this. We have thousands of acres of land and we can do whatever we want. But I'm in no hurry to do anything with it. I have enough things to do. And your statement was, quote, I'm not looking to build a lot of other things right now, end quote. Is that correct? I'm not looking to, yeah, as I said, I'm not looking to go to Scotland and build a big development, but it's got tremendous value. So we got away from what the actual question was, which was, I believe you did not build a second golf course at Aberdeen between June 2013 and June 2014, correct? Yeah, nor was I supposed to. And you did not build a new hotel at Aberdeen between June 2013 and June 2014, did you? Because I didn't want to. And you did not build any homes at Aberdeen between 2013 and June of 2014, did you? No, I have a castle that we renovated, but no, I want it just the way it is. And at some point, maybe, at my very old age, I'll go there and do the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. But I just don't want to do it now. It's an unbelievable piece of property. Pause for tea break, everyone. I'm focused then on where we got the $245 million increase in value of the property from 2013 to 2014. So would like to go back up to, if we look at, let's go down to see 489 at the top. I'll represent to you, well, no, go down a little more, whereupon the exhibit displayed on the screen was scrolled through. That's it right there. So you'll see the valuations for the club, the golf club, the land allocated to the hotel, and the residential. The remaining value for the golf courses stays about the same. Make sure I'm in frame here, everyone. It goes from $76 million in 2013 to 2014. The remainder of the value for 2013 comes from the line item valuation per George Sorial email of September 6th of 2011, in addition to DJT Capital contributions. George Sorial was a lawyer for the Trump Organization. Is that correct? Yes. He was not a valuation professional. Is that correct? No. Okay. And if we look at the changes in 2014, we could go down to the column starting at 508 that says value of undeveloped land, whereupon the exhibit displayed on the screen was scrolled through. And you could see that there is a listing that says the residential parcels are 83,000 pounds each. The number of homes to build is 2,500, which generates a value of 207 million pounds, which is then converted into dollars. That's the basis for the 245 some odd million dollar increase in value. Is that correct? I really don't know, but the job could be much bigger than that too. It's 1,200 acres, more than that, fronting the entire width, fronting on the North Sea. It's like one of the easiest in the oil capital of Europe. I'm asking, was it actually done? It's a very nice piece of land that everybody said I could never get zoned, and I not only got it zoned, but I got it zoned for much more than anyone thought possible. Let's take a look then if we could compare this, because 2,500 homes is not the same used in the statement of financial condition, which I think. Please split the screens, whereupon the exhibit was displayed on the screen. If we look, it says the valuation states there is 2,500 homes. Yes, but the statement itself says that it's 950 holiday homes, 500 single-family residences, and 36 golf villas. More luxurious, yes. And I'll represent to you that that comes to 1,486 homes in total, with only 500 single-family residences. So the statement of financial condition for 2014 does not accurately disclose the number used in the calculation. Is that correct? Those homes will sell for a tremendous amount of money. They are in the North Sea. I also could go with a much bigger job if I wanted to. The relationship is very good with Aberdeen. Aberdeen is a very rich place. It's an incredible piece of land. And again, it may be the greatest golf course ever built. And I own Turnberry and I own great ones. The numbers there are not shocking numbers. And this is a very big job. I just don't want to build it now. You know, you're probably right. I'm going to do other things right now. Mr. Wallace, following your lead, if you want to let the witness ramble on, be unresponsive, repeat himself, go ahead. I might normally move to strike, but there are things I would like to preserve for the record in that answer, so I'm reluctantly allowing this to continue. That's why I'm following your lead. I just want to note, I'm not really sure it's clear. Maybe this is the subject of ambiguity. I think his answer is a brilliant answer. I just don't know if he's answering the question because he's confused as to whether or not we are talking about the statement of financial condition or the backup data, which he's testified. I think Mr. Wallace has already admitted this witness has never seen before the backup data, so I'm not sure he's answering whether he's talking about the backup data or if he's talking about the statement of financial condition, or if the question is both. I don't think my question was answered, so I'm going to re-ask it, but I'm happy to have, if you could clear it up, that's fine. I just think it's not even in the record. I'm just asking that his prior statement remain on the record, even though it's non-responsive. Mr. Trump, my question is more directed. It's simply that the number of homes used in the calculation for 2014 do not actually match the number of homes disclosed in the statement. Is that correct? I don't know, but it could very well be. It's sort of like painting. You could do pretty much what you want to do. The land is there. You could do what you want to do. So you could do either one of them, actually. As of 2012, you actually made a determination that you would not be developing the Aberdeen property because the Scottish plans to build a wind farm offshore. Is that correct? Well, I'm not happy because they are. They've fought long and hard to build windmills. I think 9 of them out in the ocean, out in the sea, and they built them. Okay, they being Scotland. Scotland! And because of those windmills, you decided in 2012 that you are not going to be doing further development on the Aberdeen property. I told them, I don't know if it has an impact or not. I'm not a windmill person. I think I'm being proven to be right. Did you testify about your willingness to develop the Aberdeen property for a subcommittee of the Scottish Parliament in 2012? Yes, I did. And do you believe that, I'll see if I can skip ahead and just ask, would it sound correct to you that Mr. Wasselberg submitted a statement to the UK regulators in September of 2014 saying that the Trump organization did not intend to develop the Aberdeen property any further based on wind farms? We had a big fight over the wind farms, but they were put in years ago. They've been there for many years now. They'll probably come down like all other wind farms are coming down. And I've been asked whether or not they have an impact. They are miles out in the ocean. They are not on the property. They're miles out. And most people tell me no. Almost everybody tells me, I don't know if it's true. But regardless, we have the right to build a very big project. If I want to build it, that was in 2014. We were fighting the windmills. Yes. Make sure I'm in frame, everybody. And as of today, November 6th of 2023, you haven't built any homes at Aberdeen. Is that correct? It's just a beautiful piece of property sitting there waiting for homes to be built. It will be very successful. I just don't, there's nothing wrong with sitting with the property and waiting. If you have the money to play that game, and I do have a lot of money. I have a lot more money than you thought, I guess. At some point, that will be developed into a magnificent job. I just don't want to do it now. Mr. Trump, apart from the Seven Springs valuation we discussed and your apartment, do you stand by all the valuations in the Statement of Financial Condition for 2014? I haven't looked at it in years. Do you have any reason so you might not agree with the valuations in here anymore, is what you're saying? I think I've been proven to be right, because if you take those valuations and bring them up to 2021, a couple of years ago, they were much higher than they were in that statement. But the valuations were the estimated current value as of June 30th of 2014. Is that correct? Yeah, but if you carry that forward to 2021, all those valuations were low, meaning the properties are now worth more today in November 2023 than they were. Much more, yeah. Then why? Than they were in June of 2014. Okay, apart from the Seven Springs valuation we discussed and the triplex apartment, are you aware of any other properties on the statement of financial condition between 2011 and 2017 that were overstated? Not that would have, I don't know of any, but not that would have a material effect, because I'm worth billions of dollars more than the financial statements. The financial statements are just the opposite of what your attorney general thought, and they are having a big problem with it. I'm worth billions of dollars more, so anything that could be a little bit off would be non-material. Non-material! And are you aware of any non-material items that were overstated in the statement of financial condition between 11 and 17? I haven't looked. Do you still approve of the work that Mr. McConney and Mr. Wesselberg did preparing the statements of financial condition between 2011 and 2017? Well, again, we have a disclaimer clause that tells you we are doing the work. It's not in accordance with your normal. If you're going to do some kind of big certified statement, you're not doing an appraisal or everything else. And we have a very important clause called the disclaimer clause, and it's a 100% disclaim. And some people call it a worthless statement clause. They call it lots of different things. And you will be hearing in testimony, they always hold up in court, except maybe in this court, they always hold up in court. Always. It's a disclaimer. It says very strongly, do your own due diligence, do your own work, do your own study. Don't take anything from this statement for granted. You can look at the statement, but you must do your own analysis and due diligence. Do you still approve of the work Mr. McConney and Mr. Wesselberg did in preparing the statements of financial condition between 2011 and 2017? As far as I know, I do. You haven't shown me anything that would change my mind. Same thing true of the statements that came out between 2017 and 2021. You stand by that. I was assured of 2021, but I was president and I was not involved in any way with that. I was doing other things. You were not aware of anything that was going on that you disagree with, but you are not familiar with the statements. Probably the statements would be, again, if there was a mistake, it was non-material. But even if it was material, and I don't see that, we did make some changes where they found out there were mistakes. We have a disclaimer clause that says, do your own diligence, due diligence. Don't under any circumstances count on anything here, because it was done. They were done quickly. They were done, I think it says, done in accordance with the owner's projections and the owners, the Trump Organization's projections and everything else. So one of the reasons I never got too involved with these statements was that clause is on page 1. As you know better than anybody, it's also throughout the statement. When you read the statement, everything is disclaimed. They said, go out and do your own. Don't believe it? Get your own appraisers. Get your own accountants. Do everything. And that's why we shouldn't be having a case here, because we have a disclaimer clause which every court in this country holds up, except for this particular judge. Can I ask then, is this your particular position that the statements of financial conditions are in fact worthless? No, I don't think they're worthless, but I don't think they're worthless at all. But I think, frankly, with the disclaimer clause, if there is any mistake, the disclaimer clause covers it. And because they didn't devote their entire life to this, and again, most developers don't do this. They just write the name of the building and the address of the building. They put some number that they think it's worth. They don't have anything like this. What I've done is far more, and it's also far more conservative. You never mention the fact that we have $400 million cash in these things. People don't know how good a company I built. You know why? Because people like you go around and try to demean me and try to hurt me. Mr. Trump, probably for political reasons. In her case, definitely for political reasons. And I think it's hurting her. There's a lot in there that I want to keep, Your Honor, so I'm not going to move to strike that. I just want to get back and clarify one thing in your last answer. You said they did not devote their entire life to them. Who is the they you are referring to? That would be Jeff and Alan. They had other things to do. Does that mean that Jeff and Alan were not being careful when they prepared your statements? No, I think they were being careful. But again, the disclaimer clause says if there's a mistake, if there's something it says don't rely, it's called a non-reliance clause also. I mean, it's a very standard thing, and it's allowed in every court in the United States. It's a non-reliance. You stated that. I know, I'm trying to make you understand it. It's a non-reliance clause, and every court in the United States has upheld them, and every legal scholar that I've read about this case has said, what's going on here? How can a thing like this be going on? It's disgraceful. And in addition to that, I'm worth more than the numbers in the statement. That answer I will move to strike, Your Honor. As repetitive, non-responsive. He's already made the point in the record. I'm not sure there's any basis to strike, a valid basis to strike. It's an answer. Mr. Wallace is satisfied with the answers. He's calling for those narratives, and he's getting answers to those questions. And this goes to the very heart of what we're here about, which is intent. I mean, if intent is subjective, and if this witness's intent is as stated here, I don't see how anyone could ever prove intent under these circumstances. It's a brilliant answer to the question, so Mr. Wallace can't pick and choose which narratives he likes and which narratives he doesn't. He could come back here in 2 or 3 weeks and go through the same charade and ask the same questions, get it out, but as I said, it's far more effective to allow this witness to explain his position and explain to the court his view, what he intended, how he intended it, what was happening, and how he views the statements. The response is even longer than the statement. I asked to strike, so at this point, let's leave it in then. Leave it in. There's no jury. It doesn't matter. We'll leave it in. Mr. Trump, I think you said this in the course of your answers. Let me try to clarify this. You do not agree with the position of the Office of the Attorney General that the values in the Statement of Financial Conditions are overstated. Is that correct? I think she's a political hack. That's not the question. And I think that's not the question. Use this case to try to become governor. And she successfully used it to become attorney general. And I think she's a political hack. And this is a disgrace that a case like this is going on. And all you have to do is read the legal scholars and the papers, and you'll see exactly what I'm saying. And a lot of them didn't even know how valuable the properties were. You never said Trump has $300 or $400 million in cash. And now more than that, this is a political witch hunt. And I think she should be ashamed of herself. You do not agree with the position of the Office of the Attorney General that the values in the Statement of Financial Conditions are overstated. Is that correct? The overall value is billions of dollars more than is in those statements, so that when a bank gets them, the bank is seeing conservative statement, not a, she tried to make you believe even yesterday. She's out there saying, oh, fraud, fraud, fraud. This is the opposite fraud. The fraud is her, where she says Mar-a-Lago. She said it's worth $25 million. He said it's worth $18 million. $18 million. She said it's $25 million. She convinced him that it's worth $18 million. And it's worth billions of dollars or something like that. Yes or no? It's a disgrace. Yes or no? Do you agree with the position of the Office of the Attorney General that the values in the Statement of Financial Conditions are overstated? Asked and answered. It is not. No, it's not been asked and answered. He actually did it's been asked. He hasn't answered. Your Honor, I'm not screaming. All due respect, Your Honor. I don't appreciate when people scream. The overall values in billions more was the answer. That's his answer. You can read it in the record. It's a yes or no question. Just yes or no, Mr. Trump. Do you agree with the statement that the position of the Office of the Attorney General is the values are overstated? The financial statements are very conservative. The overall number of value is much higher than the number in the financial statements. In addition to that, you have a 100% disclaimer clause that goes on for a page and a half. No, no, no. We are not going to hear about this disclaimer clause. If you want to know, it's very important about the disclaimer clause, read my opinion again, or for the first time perhaps. Well, you are wrong on the opinion. Mr. Trump, let's go to that then. Mr. Trump, do you not agree that the determination of the court in its summary judgment decision that the statements of financial condition were misleading? Is that correct? He ruled against me without knowing anything about me. He ruled against me and he said I was a fraud before he knew anything about me, nothing about me. And then he said in his statement that Mar-a-Lago's worth $18 million. It's worth 50 times to 100 times more than that. And everybody knows that. And everybody's watching this case. He called me a fraud and he didn't know anything about me. You did not. So I think the essence of your answer is there. But I would like to get it as a yes or no. You do not agree with the determination of this court in its summary judgment decision that the statements of financial condition were misleading. Is that correct? I think it's fraudulent, the decision. I think it's fraudulent. The fraud is on the court, not on me. When you rule that Mar-a-Lago's worth $18 million, I could give you a quarter of a tennis court would be worth that. When you rule that Mar-a-Lago's worth $18 million and then she rules it's worth $25 million, either people are very stupid or there's fraud. There's fraud on behalf of the court because when the court does that and then they say, I didn't value my properties correct, think of it, $18 million, they said. And then he says, I'm a fraud because I didn't value my properties correctly. He's the one that didn't value the property correctly, Mr. Trump. And how do you do that? How do you rule against someone and call them a fraud as a president of the United States who did a great job? All you have to do is look at, is the president today? What's he doing? How do you call a man a fraud when you have a property that's 50 to 100 times more valuable? It's a terrible thing you do. You knew nothing about me. You believe this political hack back then, and that's unfortunate. Are you done? Done. Okay, I'll take you up on one of those invitations. You were talking about the $18 million valuation versus the higher valuation of Mar-a-Lago. Which one are you paying taxes on in Florida? Which one what? Are you paying taxes on an $18 million valuation of Mar-a-Lago or $1.5 billion? You know that assessments are totally different from the valuation of property. An assessment, as an example, in New York, you sell a building. A building was recently sold for $1 billion. It's assessed for a tiny fraction of that. Something in Florida, same thing in other places. Other places have full assessments. Whether you pay, that's what the assessment is. But that's not the way in Palm Beach, Florida. It's not that way in New York, and it's not that way in most cases. If it was that way, it would make a difference that the property had been appraised, sure, at $18 million in Florida. That would be a much different thing. Mr. Trump, I would like to go back to the statement of financial condition quickly. If you could put Exhibit 730 back up, whereupon the exhibit was displayed on the screen. I'm a little bit out of frame here. Here we go. If you go back to page 2, this is a paragraph we've looked at before. It's the second paragraph which states Donald J. Trump is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of financial statements. I would like to focus on the second half of the sentence, which says Donald J. Trump is responsible for designing, implementing, and maintaining internal control relevant to the preparation and fair presentation of financial statement. I will ask an open-ended question here. What did you do to meet your responsibility for designing, implementing, and maintaining internal control relevant to the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statement? I gave 2 people total authority to work with a very expensive accounting firm, very high-priced accounting firm, who charged me a lot of money for this, a lot of money. And they worked with the accounting firm, and they came up with a statement. I could have done this statement like many other developers where I just write down the building and put a value. I didn't choose to do it that way. I told them to work with the accounting firm and give them what they need, and that's what they did. And so, the 2 people you're referring to, once again, that's Mr. McConney and Mr. Wesselberg, correct? Correct. And so, you directed them to prepare the statements in accordance with GAAP, is that correct? I don't know what that is. I don't know what it was. I said, prepare the statements so that the accounting firm's happy. So they gave us a statement. The question is what steps you took. I told you to design, implement, maintain internal control relevant to the fair presentation of the financial statement. I just told you. Okay. Anything else you did in connection with this obligation? No. But if you looked at the paragraphs, and I don't know if Your Honor, if I could do this, but I have it in my pocket indicating, if you look at the paragraph that follow that, this is the total exculpation. And if you would like to have it, I would read it. If you would like it, or I don't know what the procedure is, but I've taken this right out of this, and it's very simple, and it says exactly how important the clause is, and it's been written about by legal scholars. Between Mazars and the Trump Organization, who's responsible for the fair presentation of the statements of financial condition? I think they work together. Who's responsible? They get paid a lot of money too. Who was responsible for making sure the statements were compliant with GAAP? I don't know. I assume. I don't know. Were they supposed to be compliant to GAAP? Because I'm not sure that's true, because GAAP is defined a certain way, and I'm not sure that's true, but certainly the accounting firm, which got paid millions of dollars to do this work, they had to do something. Mr. Trump, they got paid a lot of money to do this work. Do you have an understanding of what responsibilities, if any, the Trump Organization had in connection with the preparation of the 2014 Statement of Financial Condition? Well, I think I've answered this question about 5 times. What is the answer? I told 2 top people to work with the accounting firm, give them what they needed, anything they needed, give them so they can come up with a statement. And if this accounting firm was unhappy, they would go back and they would say, we need this, we need that. And they were very insistent on that. But they came up with statements in each of those years, so obviously they were satisfied with that. Could we put up a copy of Plaintiff's Exhibit 717? I think it is already in evidence. Mr. Trump, I've handed a document that has been marked Plaintiff's Exhibit 717. This is the engagement letter for the preparation of your June 30th, 2014 Statement of Financial Condition. I will just direct your attention to the 3rd page of this document, which has a heading, Management Responsibilities, and lists A through F, a series of responsibilities. Do you have an understanding that the responsibilities listed here were for the Trump Organization to undertake in preparation of the Statement of Financial Conditions? I don't remember this, but it looks like that, yes? So, to your understanding, the Trump Organization was responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of financial statements in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America, other than previously noted. Is that correct? Yes, but together, working with the accounting firm, the very highly paid accounting firm, the next item states that management is responsible for designing, implementing, and maintaining internal controls relevant to the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements. That was a Trump Organization responsibility, correct? Sure. Item C, presenting and detecting fraud. That was a Trump Organization responsibility. Sure. Is that correct? I would imagine they all had to work on it. This was the accounting firm for the company, and I would imagine they all worked on it. You do audits, and you do all the things that you would normally do, and hopefully if something's wrong, you catch it. Who within the Trump Organization was responsible for preventing and detecting fraud? Everybody. Item D. Who within the Trump Organization was responsible for identifying and ensuring that the company complies with the laws and regulations applicable to its activities? I would say, sort of anybody who sees anything wrong, they should report it. Anybody. Is there a formal system for reporting anything wrong as you described it within the Trump Organization? Not formal, but I say to anybody sees anything going on that's not appropriate, come see me directly. I don't care who you are. Has anyone ever come to see you directly about these? Yeah, people tell me things. Yeah. What instances do you recall? Things going on, and I get the problem solved when I hear it. But I'm asking if you remember any specific instances of someone bringing improper activity to your attention. Over the years? Yeah, sure. Apartments that are rented, that they say are vacant, somebody's getting money, other things. Yeah, I hear things. It sounds like a big deal, but it goes on. Apartment's empty. They put it down as empty, but somebody's getting money for it. And generally it's the person who runs the building or the management person or the years. That kind of thing happens, and I take care of every situation when it happens. But I want everybody to look. I tell everybody, if you see anything, come see me. come to management or come to see me directly. I don't want that going on. And that would have been the case up until you became president in 2017. That's correct. That no longer happens from 2017 to present. Is that correct? Well, present is different than it was, prior to when I was president. Right now, unless you know something I don't know, I'm not president. No, I'm just asking if people still come to you with problems that they identify. Yeah. What do you remember? I don't think they come. I'm not sure that they come. I haven't remembered a thing like right now. So we are a little new to the game because I haven't been doing this. I am back a little bit in real estate business, right? If you look at item E on this chart, it says selection and application of accounting principles. Do you know who within the Trump organization was responsible for the selection and application of accounting principles? No. I would assume that the accounting firm would recommend something and we would accept it. I'm just pointing out that this is under the heading management responsibilities. Right, but I would assume, can I finish my question? Yeah. Do you know if anyone at the Trump organization was responsible for this on the Trump organization side? Again, I would assume that Mazars would come and recommend something and we would accept that procedure. Item F is making all financial records and related information available to us and for the accuracy and completeness of that information. Who within the Trump organization was responsible for meeting that responsibility? That would be the staff in the back. That would be Jeff Allen and the staff. I would love to read this, Your Honor, if I could. Am I allowed to do that? No, not at this point. I'm shocked. I am shocked. Okay, we can take that down. Mr. Trump, I would like to talk a little bit about your building at 40 Wall Street. Yeah. Have you ever inflated the operating income of 40 Wall Street in order to increase the reported valuation? Not that I know. Can we take a quick look at Plaintiff's Exhibit 719? Sorry, we need the native version. I apologize. And if we could go to row 118, this is the entry for 40 Wall Street. And if we scroll down to rows 137 or so, there's a valuation for 2014. And it states NOI stabilized based on cash flow prepared July 2014, including pending leases, green ivy, and vacant space. And it lists an NOI of $23,873,545. Do you know if that's an accurate reflection of the NOI? I don't. It was a long time ago, but I don't. Mr. Trump, I'm handing you a document that has not been pre-marked. It's the copy of the article from Forbes magazine dated September 21st of 2021. Now, I would just like to direct your attention to the bottom of page 11 in this article. There's a headline that states, a couple months after securing the loan, Donald Trump was feeling good, sitting at his desk in Trump Tower, speaking openly to Forbes about his years-long quest to vault himself higher on the list of America's richest people. An audio recording of that conversation, which took place on September 21st of 2015, makes it clear that Trump was not only involved in the effort to misinform the world about the value of his assets, he was willing to take the ruse further than anyone else and even admit his motivation for doing so. It was good for financing, he said. I'll stop there. Do you recall speaking to Forbes on September 21st of 2015? No. And who would say that? I'm not saying that. Forbes, they're owned by China. Now they just sold it to Russia. I read yesterday. Did you tell Forbes ever that a high net worth is good for financing? I mean, it is something that I would say a high net worth is good for some types of financing, not for buildings and not for specific deals necessarily. But I guess having a high net worth, it would be good. Do you want me to say, oh, let's have a low net worth? Give me a low net worth. Let's get financing. No, having a solid record and having a good network is a positive thing. I can't say it is not. If we look down at the next paragraph, it states, even though he had just reworked his mortgage at 40 Wall Street, Trump couldn't resist another chance to boast about it. It's a 78-story building, Trump said, even though his firm had previously marketed it as a 72-story building, and it's actually just 63 stories according to documents filed with the city. It is going to throw it is going to throw off, would you say, $50 million maybe this year? He said, turning to Alan Wesselberg, $50 million at least. Trump concluded faster than his CFO could get out of the words, yeah, by the end of the year. We can stop there. Do you know whether or not it was true that 40 Wall Street in September of 2015 would throw off $50 million at the end of that year? I don't know. But I have very little respect for Forbes, so what I say to them, I deal with them very quickly, and I don't even deal with them. I haven't dealt with them in years. So, do you believe you were misquoted? I think they're out of business, aren't they? Do you believe you were misquoted in this statement? I don't know. I don't know what I said. You're giving me this information. If you have the statement, let me see it. I'm going to move ahead. I don't think too much about what I say to Forbes. We'll move on to page 13. The lower paragraph, we will start there. It says, a Forbes reporter noted that the building was 1.2 million square feet, rounding up from its actual square footage of 1.165 million. It is approximately 1.3, Trump said, but the way it is 1.3, to be honest with you. The same reporter said that Forbes was estimating its net operating income at $24 million. The inflated figure that Jeff apparently McConney had shared that previous year, where did you get that from? We were going to make $64 million net after debt service this year, at least, Trump declared. Do you recall telling Forbes that 40 Wall Street was going to make $64 million in 2015 net after debt service? No, I don't. When was this? 2015. It is a long time ago. I don't know. I believe Forbes published an audio clip with the article of this interview. I'm just going to ask if we can just play that now. The audio clip was played in open court. Your Honor, can anyone actually hear that? It seems relatively undecipherable. I could not make out what was being said. Let me skip using the audio. I don't know if we can get it any higher. Can we? I'll just ask then generally. I know it was hard to decipher what was on the recording. Does it refresh your recollection that you've spoken to Forbes in 2015? No. Do you believe that it would have been accurate to say that 40 Wall Street was going to make $64 million in 2015 net after debt service? I don't know. You're putting me back a long time ago, long past statute of limitations. All right, I don't know. We're going to hand you a copy of a document that's already in evidence. It is the Plaintiff's Exhibit 652. It is a very small print, so it's going to be easier to see it up on the screen. If we could go to page 2 of this document, and if we could zoom in on the far right column, it states 40 Wall Street income and expense statement, cash basis, 12-month period ending March 31st, 2015. If you look down at the bottom of the pullout here, it says total receipts of the building are $29,906,711. Do you know if that was an accurate reflection of the total receipts for the 12-month period of 40 Wall Street as of March 31st, 2015? I don't know. I've never seen that before. If we scroll down to the bottom of this column, actually go to the bottom of the last page, please. If we look under 2015 of March 31st, underneath debt service in and capital disbursement, it states the excess cash flow or deficit for 40 Wall Street was negative $8,736,924. Do you know if 40 Wall Street, in fact, ran a deficit of more than $8.7 million for the 12-month period ending in March 31st of 2015? I just need to pause for a tea break, everyone. One moment, please. Well, we spent millions of dollars based on that. We spent millions of dollars on building improvements. We were fixing the building. I spent a lot of money inside the building, my own cash, to improve the building. We rebuilt the lobbies. We rebuilt the elevators. We spent a lot of money, and actually even more than that, I think. But the building has been a successful building. The building improvements numbers we can see there under capital disbursements is listed at $8.2 million. Is that what you're referring to? Yeah, but we're doing a lot of work. We're doing the elevators, the lobbies, doing a lot of work, and the building needed a lot of work. I take it you don't know whether or not it's accurate that in March 31st of 2015, 40 Wall Street had run a deficit of $8.7 million. After spending millions of dollars on fixing the building, yeah, it's possible, but then you make it up years later. You make it up in later years. You lease to good tenants and they pay you a lot of rent because they like what you've done. Your Honor, I'm going to pass the witness a copy of the document. It's already in evidence as Plaintiff's Exhibit 636. Mr. Trump, this is an email from Donna Kidder to Jack Wesselberg and Alan Wesselberg with an attachment entitled 40 Wall 2012 to 2014 Cash Flows. It will be easier to see it up on the screen. Again, it has very small print. Can we go to page 3 or 5? At the top, it says 40 Wall Street LLC cash flow, year ending December 31st, 2014. And at the bottom of this section, it states cash flow after debt services, CAPEX and IT, negative $9,904,289. Do you know if 40 Wall Street, in fact, ran a deficit of more than $9.9 million for the year ending December 31st of 2014? That's a very small number, and it doesn't include all the money that we spent in fixing the building, bringing it back to good health. It also doesn't show vacancies and things that are leased up. The building is now actually, I think it's pretty close to being fully leased, but it doesn't show vacancy, and it doesn't show all of the money spent at construction. Am I understanding then, I'm sorry to interrupt you, am I understanding that this number could be correct, but you think there are other expenses that aren't included here? We spent a lot of money in fixing the building up, and the building is a very good building, but this has nothing to, you can show this de minimis stuff or non-material stuff. This has nothing to do with values. The values of 40 Wall Street is, hundreds of millions of dollars more than what she says it is. She doesn't know what 40 Wall Street, she doesn't even know where 40 Wall Street is. And the value is hundreds of millions. If I was going to sell that building because it was a lawsuit that started off with value, now let's get into rent roll of one building, big deal. This is all non-material stuff. If we were fixing up a building and spending money on new elevators and new escalators and new all up things we have in that building, it's going to do very well in the future. You have to do this stuff. Mr. Trump, are you familiar with what technique Mr. Wesselberg and Mr. Connie used to value 40 Wall Street for the 2014 Statement of Financial Condition? No, but the value of the building I am familiar with, because I would say that the building, I could look at a building and tell you what it was worth. I would like to move on to page 4 of this document, which lists 40 Wall Street LLC cash flow year end December 13, 2013. We go to the bottom of this year's entry. We see cash flow after debt service, CAPEX and IT, negative $317,370. $7 million. I think you misspoke. $7 million. I'll restate what I said, which is negative $7,317,370. Mr. Trump, do you know if 40 Wall Street in fact ran a deficit of more than $7.3 million for the year ending December 31st of 2013? I don't know, but it doesn't affect the value of the building. The building is the building. If a developer comes along, they want to know that you have to spend money to make money with a building. And they are going to know. They will either fix it or see that we are doing it. It doesn't affect the value of the building. You're talking about small money. It's not material. And this was a lawsuit based on values. And then when they looked at my statement and when they looked at the cash, they said, oh, we're going to have to go a different way. How about disgorgement? Let's take all of his properties away like they do in communist China. Let's take all of his properties away because, except you have one problem. I have very little debt and I have a lot of cash and I have assets that are much better than you thought. So that was a little bit of a problem. But in this city today and in this country today, maybe a certain judge would do that. Mr. Trump, I promise we will get through this particular document much more quickly if you can stop at I don't know. And you are repeating statements you have made before. I don't know. So I am familiar with your position. If we could go to page 5 of this document, please. It is the 40 Wall Street LLC cash flow year ending December 30th of 2012. If we go to the bottom, it lists cash flow after debt service, CAPEX and IT, negative $20 million. Do you know if 40 Wall Street, in fact, ran a deficit of more than $20.9 million for the year ending December 31st of 2012? It could have been for 1 year, it did. It could very well have been. But it makes a lot of money, and it makes a lot of money now. It depends. You have an extraordinary expenses during certain periods of times with building. You have to redo things, but I can tell you it makes 40 Wall Street obviously makes a lot of money. And by the way, the money we borrowed is all current or paid off. You know, no bank lost money. With all of this stuff, no one bank lost money. Not one insurance company lost money. And by the way, the insurance company that you say lost, they are still my insurance company. It is one of the biggest, most prestigious companies in the world. They don't even know what you're talking about. Mr. Trump, do you recall making misrepresentations about the appraised value of 40 Wall Street? No, Mr. Trump. You are being handed a document that's been marked as Plaintiff's Exhibit 3341. At the top of this is an email chain between Donald J. Trump Jr., Amanda Miller, Ronna Graff, and Jeffrey Lichtenberg. If we could go down to the bottom email in this thread, actually, we will put it up on the screen so it's easier to follow. There is an email from someone named Cusisto from the Wall Street Journal to a series of email addresses, including this address, Ronna Graff, this address, Amanda Miller, and Selma Langer. Before we get into the substance of the document, I want to first ask, do you know if the email address stated here was ever an actual email address in use? I don't know. No. Did you ever use an email address of this name? Might be, but not that I know of. Go to the top. It states, thank you both again for chatting with me about 40 Wall Street. We are planning on running the story tomorrow. So I wanted to make sure I sent over a few facts. Do you recall whether or not you, Donald Trump Jr., I'm off screen a little bit, everyone, spoke to Wall Street Journal in or around January of 2012? No, I don't. If you look down under the headline value, item 3 says, the building is one of Trump Organization's most significant commercial holdings in Manhattan. It is now valued at $600 million, according to a recent appraisal. Do you know who made the representation to the Wall Street Journal that the 40 Wall Street had been valued at $600 million, according to a recent appraisal? The year is what year? 2012. 2012? Yes. No. I mean, it's possible. It's possibly around that number. It's not that far off. I don't know. I don't know if anybody had an appraisal, but I know that number is not a very far off number. If anything, it could be worth more. I'm asking about the existence of an appraisal. Do you know if there was, in fact, an appraisal at the Trump Organization valuing the 40 Wall Street at $600 million as of January of 2012? So you're saying 12 years ago, do I know whether or not there's an appraisal sitting around someplace for some building? I'm asking if you were aware. Yes, I'm not aware. I will represent to you that we have not received an appraisal from the Trump Organization Discovery valuing the building at $600 million as of June 2012. Mr. Trump, are you the one? Is Mr. Wallace testifying now? I said I'm representing to him that we got what we got in Discovery. Is that part of the question, though? I think you can't just sort of represent. That's fine. Mr. Trump, were you the person who told the reporter I'll strike that question and start over. Mr. Trump, it is withdrawn. Withdrawn. I apologize, Your Honor. Are you the one who told the reporter at the Wall Street Journal that there's a $600 million recent appraisal for 40 Wall Street? Objection. Asked and answered. I don't know of any such appraisal. Overruled. We're talking about 12 years ago. I don't know. If we look at the top of this email chain, there is an email from Donald Trump Jr. It says, okay, great. There shouldn't be much additional. I don't know where she got the 35 number in renovation, but DJT told her the 600, so he will be happy if that gets printed. Are you the DJT that's being referenced here? Yes. Does this refresh your recollection about whether or not you told a reporter that there had been $600 million appraisal on 40 Wall Street in January of 2012? No, but I think the building would be worth about that. I don't think $600 million for that very, very large building is a lot of money. 5-minute warning. Your Honor, I ask the plaintiff's exhibit 3341 be entered into evidence. Granted. Objection, statute of limitations of relevance. I'm not sure what the relevance is of a news article. It doesn't have anything to do with the SOFCs. Overruled on both grounds. Whereupon the document referred to was deemed marked as evidence as plaintiff's exhibit 3341 by the court. So, Mr. Trump, why did you have the statement of financial condition prepared? When? Let's say in the period of 2011 to 2017. Why was a statement of financial condition being prepared by the Trump organization? I think in one form or another, maybe not officially, we had statements of financial condition. Maybe before that, I don't know. I can't answer that question. We are doing statement of financial condition. You said you were spending a lot of money to have these made. Why were you spending that money? I think it's a positive thing to have. Even for myself, I think it's a positive thing to have. Did you use them to obtain financing? Because of the disclaimer clause, they were almost valueless. That's not my question. My question is whether you would actually use them to obtain financing. I would give them, but I don't think anybody paid much attention to them because of the disclaimer clause and because generally that's not the way to do it. Again, I've been doing this for 50 years and they look at the property. I'm going to hand up to the witness a document marked as Plaintiff's Exhibit 1433. It is short, so you can look at it on the screen. This is the letter dated November 15th, 2011. If you look down at the bottom, is that your signature, Mr. Trump? Yeah, it is. Okay, and who is Mr. Richard Byrne? He's the executive at Deutsche Bank. Do you know if he is the commercial real estate group at Deutsche Bank? I don't know if he is now. I think he was then. Fair enough. I'm asking as of this letter, as of November of 2011, was Mr. Byron the commercial real estate group of Deutsche Bank? Yeah, it is 12 years ago. This is so crazy. So you sent this is a letter I sent, yes, and you were interested in whether or not they might finance the Doral transaction. Is that right? Right. You did not finance the transaction through commercial real estate group at Deutsche Bank, did you? I did it through some other group, yes. Would you have been the private wealth management? Would it have been the private wealth management group at Deutsche Bank? Yes, very different people. Your Honor, I move 1433 into evidence. Statute of limitations, granted, it is in, whereupon the document referred to was deemed marked for evidence as Plaintiff's Exhibit 1433 by the court. 2-minute warning. We can stop here then. Okay, everybody. We will take a break until 2:15. Have a good lunch. And I will order the witness not to discuss this case or his testimony with anybody during the break, whereupon the luncheon recess has taken at the time. The following proceedings were stenographically recorded by Senior Court Reporter Michael Renita. Okay, everybody. Oh my goodness. That was the morning testimony. Now give me just a minute. Thank you, Kristen. Give me just a minute here. I will turn on the comments so we can chat about it. That was quite the adventure, everyone. All right, just one moment. Here we go. Oh my gosh. Goodness. Get the comments turned back on. Here we go. All right. Here we go. All right. Comments are coming back on. Please be respectful, everyone. Oh my goodness. That was quite the testimony. Oh my gosh. Yes. There was a lot of information that came out. Oh my goodness gracious. Highly enjoyable. Yes. Oh, it was so much. Everybody. I know. It was really something. You can see, though, how the court was trying to kind of corral the testimony, corral both of the attorneys. You know, the AG's office had some problems too that they needed to kind of they needed to realign themselves. Defense counsel had two different attorneys that were bumping up and talking and objecting. Love your Trump voice. Yes, I'm sorry. That is just the only Trump voice I have. Everyone, I don't know why. Have you ever seen a belligerent? Yes, I've seen a lot. Actually, to be perfectly honest, there can be a lot of very belligerent witnesses. This one's pretty bad. I've never seen a witness actually go after the judge himself, though. I've seen the witness get very upset at the prosecutor or at the opposing counsel. I've never seen one go after a judge before, though. That is different. That is a little different. Voiceover is great. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I was trying to just make that distinction so you could tell when I was switching lines is all. So I was just trying my best. Yes, and the Miss Haba voice probably could have been better. I'm not a professional here. Why does the judge allow him not to answer the question, to ramble? You know, the judge has to pick his battles in this particular situation, and there were so many battles. You could kind of see very early on the judge was getting frustrated and saying, hey, you need to stay within the parameters here. But he gave up. I think the judge just gave up and said, you know, whatever happens, happens. Let's just kind of let it go. Our voices, Michelle Tucker. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. Yes. What's the statute of limitations issue? So this is an ongoing issue that is one of his biggest talking points. So Judge Engeron had ruled, the Court of Appeals had held, you can't bring any suits against Trump in the organization before a certain period of time. They are past the statute of limitations, so you can't bring lawsuits. So this judge has said, that's fine, you don't need to bring lawsuits, but you can use evidence from whenever. Evidence isn't barred by the statute of limitations. Lawsuits are barred by the statute of limitations. So when they're offering evidence of the years prior to the year the statute of limitations is being discussed, every time it's being objected to, although in any lawsuit you can bring in evidence from years ago, there's no statute of limitations on evidence. You just can't bring claims. So they will continue to go on asking about those statute of limitations questions. Yes, because several of the finances and the financial statements had been prior to that 2014 date. So the AG couldn't bring lawsuits regarding those dates. But the evidence itself can be used. I felt like I was in the courtroom. Oh, yes. Well, you can see how it really kind of went back and forth a lot, like a tennis match in certain situations. Yes. Yes. And, you know, it seems too like his reliance on this disclaimer and the worthless clause. And of course, Judge Engeron was saying, look, I already went through the worthless clause in my order. And I explained that under the law, the disclaimer is not going to cover everything. It just doesn't work that way. So the judge was trying to explain that. And then, you know, the judge, I think, got a couple zingers in there for sure. I think that defense counsel put their objections into the record and clarified their objections. So they made a good, clean record of it. I thought they did a really good job with that. And I think Mr. Wallace seemed very patient. I think he went through very methodically. He did a good job. I think he had some problems too. He could have done better, but it was a challenging situation for everybody. Who establishes the rules? Things like what evidence is to be admitted. Yes, we have rules. So let me just grab the rules real quick to give you an example. So I'll just show you the federal rules. We have procedural rules that we have to follow. So we have federal rules of criminal procedure. So this is how things are admitted into court, the process to present evidence. And then we have rules of civil procedure. So in New York, they have their own book that has their rules of civil procedure. So all these rules have to be followed during court about the witnesses, direct examination, cross-examination, the scope, how evidence can come in, and so on. So they have their own book of rules just on how to proceed in trial. And then we also have rules of evidence. So New York has its own rules of evidence. This, again, is just an example. Now, all of the rules, all of the evidence in here has to be authenticated. It has to be reliable. So there are lots of rules. You can't just bring evidence in. You actually have to follow the rules in order to get your evidence in as well. So New York has its own set. Again, I'm just showing you the federal rules here, but New York has its own set of civil rules for evidence and civil rules of procedure. So all of those have to be followed. And, most people don't realize that, which is fine because it's not particularly exciting to talk about all of those rules when we are doing dramas about it. But for those of us that work day in and day out inside of the court, those rules are, what govern our entire existence. So we're very careful about them. Why is a civil case instead of fraud? Yes, so this is a civil case because of the section of the code that the AG's office brought it under. So she brought it under a civil code section. New York has a special provision that allows for the Attorney General of New York to go after ongoing perpetual fraud in business. So there's a special section for her, and it's listed out as a civil section. There can be criminal charges. There could be. I'm not sure about what the statute of limitations are on that. Some of his prior people working for him have actually been found guilty and have served time already. So those were the criminal sections, but the civil piece of it is because that's how their law is written. Yes, there were criminal charges. So he had his accountant, his CFO, all of those guys have all been charged, have been found guilty, have been serving some time and are back out again. So criminally, those have been charged, but the Attorney General in New York was really focusing on the business piece of it. And that's where her power is, or any Attorney General in New York. It just happens to be who's in power at the moment. So she is able to bring the civil suit. The criminal side of things, I think, have pretty much been wrapped up when it comes to this particular information. We do have that open criminal case going regarding the improper financial disclosures of the hush money. That hush money case is still scheduled for March, that particular criminal trial. So that one's still going on. But a lot of the criminal cases that came from this have already been prosecuted. All this testimony can be used. Yeah, I don't think so. And you can see too how frustrated he was. It seems like, and I understand. He's like, why can't you just see from my point of view? Why can't you just look at this sheet of paper that I have that proves everything? Like this, why are we even here? Like he truly is not getting the intricacies involved here. And not truly getting like why there's a problem. I mean, I'm not sure he really understands what the problem is here. Yes, he could stay. Yeah, the hush money. So those kinds of financial disclosures, that quantity of money that had been given to two different women in California was supposed to have been properly accounted for, and it was not. So he's been charged for it. We'll see what happens. Many people are saying the New York hush money case isn't particularly strong. I would agree. It's not necessarily a strong case, but it's, we've got laws and they were violated. So he went forward. He doesn't seem to understand GAAP. Yeah, the general accepted accounting principles issue, I think, is huge, Suze. I think this that whole accounting issue is what's gotten a lot of people into trouble here because they just don't understand the basic premise of it. And if they did, even if they had a very rudimentary understanding, I think they wouldn't be in as much trouble as they're in right now, for sure. Yes, and did you also notice? I noticed that too. That his attorneys seemed to be very complimentary. They were saying, be respectful. He's the former president of the United States. He's the future president of the United States. He gave a great answer. Just let him talk. Let him say whatever he needs to say. All of those things, I think, are very intentional. His attorneys needed to do that in order to kind of calm him, I think. So I think they did a pretty good job of that. Why is it not a strong case? I just don't, we've just got a couple of situations where money wasn't set out through the proper channels, but it was later corrected. So, I mean, it's, again, to me, those seem like simple, even though they are felonies, they're Class E felonies. So they're very simple situations. There are accounting errors is what they are. So that's what I mean. It's not like a big, huge case. Down in Florida, one of those classified documents is up to 10 years in prison, just one, and they've got over 30. So it's just not at the same level. Can the IRS go after him? Yes, and they can kind of wade through and figure that out themselves, how they want to do it. That's a huge question, the tax evasion issue. So I do not know where that's at when it comes to all of that. But yes, went to prison for it. Yes, exactly. Yeah, there were issues. There were huge issues going on with that. And there's a lot of potential for further problems. I wouldn't say any of these cases is a BS case. I would say if you're looking at 300 years in prison versus a few years on a felony, on a low felony in New York, there's a difference, is what I would say with that. For sure. Yeah. I mean, again, and the IRS has its own way. The IRS is its own animal. I mean, the IRS scares me more than the prison system does. Yikes. It really does. Oh, you make law seem so easy. Oh, thanks, Jesse. I do try to explain things and make it more approachable. So, yeah, Al Capone went down. Absolutely. Yep. Martha Stewart did too. Absolutely. I mean, you do the crime, you do the time. That's kind of how we work here. So, and if sometimes, again, I've said this before, that prison isn't always the most appropriate thing either. Accountability is what we're going for in the justice system. Sometimes accountability is in the form of jail time. Sometimes it's not. So, I think here, the New York AG, from what I can tell, her accountability is that he moves his businesses out of New York. That's really what she's after. So, again, it's what is it that we need in order to kind of hold up and hold someone accountable for bad behavior. And there's been a lot of bad behavior, and our justice system just works so slow. It takes a long time to catch up, just like for Jan 6. So it takes a while for the legal system to catch up, but eventually it does. So yeah, and I think we're all learning that maybe we need to put some more standards into place when it comes to running for president. I think that is something we need to kind of sort out. We'll hopefully get that sorted as time goes on. We'll see about that 14th Amendment. We'll see. I know it's been appealed in the Colorado Supreme Court. We will see what happens with that. But I definitely need to have some changes put into place. Yeah. It's a big question. And again, this law that he's being brought up in New York, and the civil case is unique to New York. It is something that was passed in New York in order to try to go after this constant, perpetual business fraud. And that's what the statute's meant for, and that's what they're using it for. Yes, well, I think a lot of people are discouraged. I think a lot of people are discouraged primarily because, I think a lot of people are more results oriented. They just kind of want to skip through everything and get to the end. Like, is he guilty? Is he not guilty? Is he going to get jail? Is he not going to get jail? But unfortunately, our legal system, it is that process. It's a system. It's a long, slow, methodical process. So, and I think a creator had mentioned it's the process of chopping and stacking wood. And that's so true. It's like one piece of wood at a time. You cut it, you process it, you put it in the stack until you build it up. And unfortunately, it just takes an incredible amount of time. It's very frustrating. It's frustrating, but it's coming. It's definitely coming. Are you going to read the afternoon part? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I will or not. This one, this was the most bombastic part of it. So the afternoon one wasn't too much. Hope the rule of law will prevail. And Mia, it does. It does. The rule of law does, in the end, does win out. It takes a while, but it does in the end. This one was a lot. It was, Kristen. It was. But it was a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Oh, it was a lot of fun. How can accountants protect themselves from these types of bosses? Jesse, that's a great question. And one of the biggest thing is, our accountants or everyone have their own code of ethics, and you really have to make those difficult decisions on what's okay, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. And it was, in fact, an accountant that kind of blew the whistle on this situation too, that said, I'm not going to do this, and walked away. So, I mean, there just comes a point where you acknowledge you can't continue on in the same position, and if your values are being called into question. Very difficult situation. Very difficult. I've been looking up the Hall and the Oates case, and I've gotten almost no information on that. It's sealed so careful. It's sealed incredibly carefully. So I have been looking at that, though. The other case I've been looking at is the Sean Combs, the P. Diddy case, and there was a complaint filed against him recently. And I think that it's an important case to discuss, but it's kind of out of my realm of comfort. Those particular types, those categories of cases are very difficult. So I'll probably give you an overview of it, and show you where you can find the case, but probably will not go through the case itself, just because that particular content is just very difficult for me to make it through. So, but that case is very important. If he wins the election minus the Georgia case, he's off the hook criminally. No, I don't necessarily think so. I think because of how those cases are going, I don't necessarily think so. I don't think it's mutually exclusive, everybody. I don't think it's mutually exclusive. I mean, sometimes we can, you might think, oh, he could pardon himself, but there's a lot involved in that whole process. So I'm not sure exactly how that would work. Yeah, it's interesting because, again, we also have some pretty serious investigations going on in New Mexico and Arizona right now as well. So I believe that there are more state cases coming on the way for sure. So, I think the Georgia case is incredibly strong. It's a very important case. Where can you find the transcript? So let me grab my document real quick, just a minute. Okay, so you can go online and excuse me. You can go online, New York State Unified Court System. You can pull up the e-file documents. This is the index number. This is the key here. You need this number and you can pull up the case. And when you go through and you look through the e-file documents, what will come up will be a huge list like this. This is the docket. This has all of the exhibits, everything that has been filed. And the transcripts are available through an exhibit that's been filed just a few days ago. Oops. Another drink of tea. So it's available online for everybody. So it's about 2,000 pages because it's the transcripts from all of the witnesses. I just went through and pulled out Mr. Trump's testimony for the morning, but you can pull any of them for Eric, for Ivanka, anybody. It's all available free online, along with all of the exhibits too. So you can pull in all of the statements of financial conditions. You can pull in everything. So if you want any evidence, this is an evidence-oriented case. It's all available there online. So absolutely. Afternoon transcripts. Yes. Well, I'm not sure. I'll have to make that assessment. I'll have to see. Excuse me. I do have, actually, the next thing I've got listed for my next live, everybody, is to go through the Georgia indictment. I had a lot of requests on how to annotate. So this is the Georgia RICO indictment, and I have gone through and annotated. So I have a blank copy. So that's kind of the next on my list, is to go through and annotate that indictment. So I've got that, and then I've also got a couple new filings too that have been coming out of multiple cases. Thanksgiving post was greatly. Oh, I'm so glad. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I tell you what I'll do is I'll probably post a video on, I'll probably make a post on when I think the best day and time would be to do the afternoon one. So, usually I post in my stories what I'm going to be doing next for my lives. So, we can kind of, you can get a good idea of when that's going to be. I typically go on lives at 7 o'clock Central. So today's a little bit different. It's a little different day. So I do normally go at 7. Now I will not be back on again today, but I will be back again tomorrow. Oh, thank you, my voice characterizations. I'm not professionally trained, people. Oh my goodness. I'm just trying to differentiate between the different people. Oh my gosh. So I'm glad it was very interesting. I found it to be very interesting. Oh my goodness. My goodness. So yes, I do. I will have this up on my Tube of View. I have a couple more that need to come up very soon, but I will have those up very shortly on my Tube of View channel. So I will go ahead and sign off at this point, everyone. I'm going to have to go. Now, I've just started putting gummy bears in my tea, and I think that's really helping. So I would say I would highly recommend. So highly, highly recommend, if you've got a sore throat, to put some gummy bears in your tea. That's very helpful. So I'll go ahead and sign off for now, everyone. I will be back again tomorrow. Yes, it's helping. It's a great trick. Now, they're just regular gummy bears, okay? Just regular. So I will be back tomorrow, 7 o'clock, my normal time, and we'll be doing some updates and going through some more documents. So thank you, everybody, for coming and joining me today. Lots of fun. I appreciate hanging out with everyone. I think it worked out really well to have comments off during the presentation and then do a Q&A. So that seems to have worked really quite well. I think I will kind of continue that on as well. So that seems to be a good combination at this point. So we will have Vegas gummy bears. So we'll continue that on. But thank you again, everybody, for coming. And I will be back at my usual time tomorrow, 7 o'clock Central. So take care. Have a fantastic rest of your weekend, everybody. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.